One vegan wrote to me online and said, when you're 40, you're going to have a heart attack. And this was 2 months before I was 40. Because I'm now 41.
Okay.
And when they wrote this really angry message, I was like, oh, so I've got 2 months till I die. Okay. I'm feeling amazing. I feel the best day I ever have, but I'm going to die in 2 months. It really goes very well. You know, when clients come to me and they say, okay, I want to do the carnivore diet, the biggest thing for them is just getting used to just having meat on their plate.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, so what do you have for breakfast? I have eggs, but what do you have with the eggs?
Yeah.
I just have eggs. People say it's really restrictive.
Yeah.
It's not restrictive. I tell you what's restrictive is constantly thinking about food, constantly, like before, when I was unhappy, being depressed.
Yeah.
Not going out, not living, not experiencing life.
Yeah.
That's restrictive. When people say to me now, what health issues do you have? And I'm like, none. I can't think of anything. There's nothing now.
Welcome back to the Dr. Cramps podcast. Today, I've got a very special guest. It is Rachel at Carnivore Fitness. There's not many female fitness influencers in the carnivore space. Rachel's incredibly unique. She's trained many, many people. She's worked with Sean Baker on his podcast in the past, and she's got a tremendous amount of experience and insight to understand how best to go about your fitness journey in the carnivore space. Rachel, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to go straight in.
Okay.
If you could just give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you got to be where you are today.
Okay, so going back many years, I started off, years ago, I used to be known as like the fitness queen, and I was very slim, healthy. Well, I thought I was healthy.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of juice detoxes, which I know now is no good.
Yeah.
Like those juice detoxes where I was like, make sure I get the whole bag of spinach and put that all in there. You know, I can fit so much more in there. Yeah, so we know that's not good now. But at the time I was like, right, I'm really fit and healthy. I'm going to just do this. So I was doing that and I was going to the gym. But what I found is I was getting injuries at the gym. I was blacking out at the gym. So I remember a friend having to come over to me and give me rice cakes of all things.
Hang on, you blacked out in the gym?
Yeah, but I've got my dad's mentality and carried on training. So my vision went completely black. I couldn't see anything.
Wow.
And I had dumbbells in my hand and I just carried on.
See, I had that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I was a powerlifter for many years.
Oh.
I would do a big lift, but I would just kind of use up all my electricity, and then my vision would go to have to sit down. Luckily, I never collapsed.
Would you first get those blurry lines in your eyes? And then they would get bigger and bigger. So what I would get is like this little blur in my vision. And then that blur would get bigger and bigger and it'd take up the whole of my vision. And then the whole thing would go black.
Wow.
So then I couldn't see. And I was like, I can't see the dumbbells in front of me, but I'm just going to finish this set and I'm going to go and sit down. So I did that. Went and sat down. My friend force-fed me some rice cakes with almond butter on them.
Okay. Some sugar with some cyanide.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously that didn't work very well. But I did, I was one of these people that was training like maybe twice a day sometimes. Everyone wanted to train with me because I looked like I was really fit. And in between, because I'd have so many people training with me, I'd skip in between sets. I'd be skipping and then lifting heavy. And then, it was a bit of a recipe for a disaster, really. So I did that. I was on that path. And then I met one of the trainers there and he gave me this carb cycle plan.
Okay.
And on the carb cycle plan, there was a high carb, low fat day, and then medium, and then a high fat, low carb. And I was saying to him, I can't stand the high carb day. It's my worst day. And he was like, everyone says that's their favorite. But that got me feeling much better because it was a lot of meat in that diet. Mm-hmm. Every meal had a form of protein. So that actually recovered me a lot, because what I didn't mention is when I was juicing is I aged rapidly as well. So
all that sugar, eh?
I look so much older.
Yeah.
Like I look at pictures now from 11 years ago and I think I look younger now than I did then. It's crazy. So that did a lot to help reverse some things. Carried on doing that for a while. Then I had, that was because I'm a mum as well, I had my last baby, which was my fourth child. And after I had him, I got in a bit of a cycle where I was going and having coffee and having a biscuit and cake and stuff. And I'd always been really conscious of my health because when I was growing up, my dad was a bodybuilder. So I spent like my mum and dad were separated. So I spent all my weekends in the gym and I loved it. he owned his own gym, and we spent a lot of time in gyms, and that was quite an experience, because my dad commanded so much power in the gym, where he was like the biggest guy there. So everyone we'd walk in, they'd be like, oh, there he is. And they'd stop what they're doing. They'd watch what he was doing and try and copy what he was doing. And
I had the opposite.
Oh, did you?
Because when I first started going to the gym, I had barely any weight on me. And people would be like, oh, he's going to be out of here next week.
And did you show them?
Oh, yeah. And then I got into powerlifting.
Amazing.
And then people would just stop and stare, like this tiny guy squatting like 230 kilos, like he's going to break himself.
I love that. Have you seen VLAD? Is it VLAD?
I have no idea what that is.
So there's this guy, and he basically, sometimes he dresses up as an old man. He's really small.
Oh, yeah. Like,
he's really slim.
Like Anatoly or something.
And he will go into the gym and see all these big guys, and they're lifting heavy weights. And they're saying to him, no, don't try and lift it. Yeah. He does it with one hand.
I've seen it,
He's really small, but he's amazingly strong. So I suppose it's just like deceiving sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But yeah, you reminded me of him just then. So that happened. My dad used to be really like concerned about health and make sure that we were eating enough meat and things. But he used to say about lean meat, obviously being a bodybuilder, it was chicken breast and all that kind of stuff, and broccoli, rice.
Chicken, broccoli, rice, standard.
Yeah, standard, very standard. And rice cakes, funny enough. So moving on from that, I did the juicing, then I did the carb cycle. The carb cycle got me actually in really good health. And then I had my last baby, then I fell off and was just not sleeping very much, obviously with having 4 children then. And it was difficult. So I was in a bit of a cycle, going and getting coffee, having like biscuit. I wasn't eating a lot at all.
Okay.
But what I was eating was bad. And it actually made my mind really quite toxic. So I got depressed, and I would make lots of plans and cancel them all. I wouldn't go anywhere, wouldn't do anything, wouldn't see anyone. And there was kind of like this talk with my family behind my back. Oh, Rachel's going to cancel. She's not going to come. And I did always cancel. And then in the end, I just thought, I've had enough of this. Yeah. So I started going to the gym at like 4 a.m. because I didn't want anyone to see me, because I'd gained so much weight.
Wow.
And I'd gone from always a lifetime of fitness. When I had my pregnancies, every time I did gain weight, but then I would lose it pretty quickly.
Okay.
But this last pregnancy, that stayed on for about 2, maybe 3 years maximum. And that was pretty awful. It wasn't very nice, kind of existing, walking around, not wanting to be noticed, people taking pictures, you're going over and deleting it from their phones and things. So the funny thing is, when people say they want to see my pictures, I haven't got that many, because I deleted them all. There's really not that many, because I didn't ever expect to be overweight, and it really didn't feel right. I definitely wasn't into all this body positivity, and that's a whole nother propaganda machine, quite frankly. So I thought, I'm going to do something about it. Started going to the gym. I started looking into keto. Did the keto diet. Keto diet did some really good things. Made me feel a lot better. I did lose some weight. Yeah.
How long ago are we talking in terms of years?
I've been on the carnivore diet 5.5 years now.
Okay.
So before that, 6 months prior to that, I was keto for 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the day before my youngest daughter, my third-born child's birthday. They'd all gone to the beach. And I had come across Sean Baker and some other doctors and people that I thought were absolutely crazy in the carnivore community. And but the more I listened to them, what happened was it planted a seed.
Okay.
So when I was eating my plate full of, because I was doing net carbs so that I could have the most veg, of course, because I thought that was really important. And what happened is I was listening to Sean and thinking he was absolutely crazy, but it did plant a seed. And then I was thinking, wait, I just had that asparagus, and now I actually feel a bit bloated. I feel a bit lethargic. I don't feel quite as good as I did before. So I thought, I'm just going to cut it out. So it was the day before my daughter's birthday. I just went all in and just started. How I started my carnivore diet is I was eating livers every day, which I don't recommend now.
No, neither do I.
No. But back then I enjoyed it and I craved it. So I ate it every day. Yeah. And then I got to a point about 2 months in, and I started to just detest it and I haven't eaten it since, funny enough. And I wouldn't advocate for eating it, but I feel like my nutrient levels were so low that my body wanted to restore those. And then once I'd got to a certain level, my body was like, nope. So
I think a lot of people go through that. I think that's quite common. People crave liver or they have it. And then once they've had enough, body just doesn't want it anymore.
Yeah. And then, because I went from enjoying it and craving it and wanting it every day.
Yeah.
To someone made me some and I was like, I'm really sorry, but I can't eat it. And I don't waste food.
Yeah.
I eat a lot of food.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, when I was my heaviest, I was eating barely any foods, like not many meals or anything, like a coffee and cake. So there wasn't a lot of food there, but I was so overweight. And then fast forward to today, I eat 3 meals and I eat a lot. I eat between 3, sometimes 6,000 calories as well. Depending on if I'm hungry, I just eat intuitively. I don't count, I don't track.
Yeah.
But I do know roughly what I eat because people have asked me. So on the odd occasion, I might just do a bit of tracking because people are inboxing me saying, how many calories do you eat? And I don't think it's good to put it out there too often because then people want to copy what you're doing, and we're individuals and we've got individual needs.
Yeah.
So whereas I think we all will do well eating meat and on the carnivore diet, we have to tweak it in a way that fits with us.
Yeah.
And I do actually think the hardest part of the diet is mentally.
Okay.
When I get, when clients come to me and they say, okay, I want to do the carnivore diet, the biggest thing for them is just getting used to just having meat on their plate.
Yeah.
So they say, okay, so what do you have for breakfast? I have eggs. But what do you have with the eggs?
Yeah.
I just have eggs. But when I have eggs, I have 10 eggs or 10 to 12. So it's a lot more than standard. And they're like, okay, so what else do you have on the side though? No, you don't have anything.
You go round and round, don't you?
So especially when we go to restaurants, I went to a restaurant the other day and I said, I just eat meat. And could you make me, instead of the chips, can you make me some halloumi? And they came over, they brought lots of lovely halloumi, but they put lots of slices of tomato and salad.
Yeah, I know. I get the same.
Yeah. And I was like, I just said, no carbs, no veg, no. And they just feel like they have to do it, which is really funny. I don't know if they think, I'm going to help your health right now.
Yeah.
Just flip you some veg. But I always just put them to the side and eat what I'm eating. But I did manage to get a plate of meat. Yeah. And instead of the chips, I had halloumi. I don't always eat dairy. Yeah. Because dairy can become a bit of a craving for me. Okay. I can become a bit addicted.
Okay.
So I have to limit it.
Fine. So 5.5 years you've been on the carnivore diet. Yeah. Obviously, you said Sean Baker was a big influence on you. I'm guessing you just sort of watched him on YouTube and through that way. But obviously, in a past life, you used to work with him on his podcast as well. How did that come about?
So I had been carnivore for 6 months. And then someone told me that he was doing a coaching program. So I joined that. And then when you were in the coaching program, because I was one of the first ones to join, there wasn't that many of us. And they were saying they needed help with the website and they needed help with different things. So I first of all helped with collecting science. So I was collecting different URL codes for the different science that he's got, because he's got like a whole wealth of science on his page. I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't know.
His page is actually really good. It's got lots of recipes. It's got success stories. So if you go to the success section on his page, you can actually type in whatever your illness is and it will come up with some success stories.
Is that the Rivero thing? Okay.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's 2 sides to it now. If you put in carnivore.diet, it will come up as well.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, one or 2 of those. And you can go on the successes and everything. So I started doing that, first with the science, which took a lot of time because there was a lot of studies on there. And then I moved on to doing the newsletter.
Okay.
So the emailed out newsletter, I would do that and get that emailed out. And then I went on to doing the podcast.
Okay.
Now, at first I was doing the success stories. But I did so well with that one that I took over the whole thing and did both success and the VIPs. So
you feel very at home right now.
Yeah. Well, no. Funny enough, they were asking me to go on their podcast at the time.
Okay.
And I just flat out said no. I'm like, no, I'm behind the camera.
Why was that?
I just didn't like being on the camera.
Okay.
Because I was new to the diet. I think a carnivore diet has given me a lot of confidence, but it didn't come instantly.
Okay.
It came with time, and I suppose it came with the more improvements I got in my health.
Sure.
The more confident I got, the more happier I was, the more kind of taller you walk, the better you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you've got to hide away.
Sure.
So they were begging me for a long time to do a podcast, and I only done it. I did it last year.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
5 years in.
Yeah. Yeah. So it took a long time to actually get to that point. But I mean, I go on podcasts all the time now, so I'm really not fazed. But I mean, normally for the Carnivore podcast, it's never a face-to-face. So this is quite nice. It's different.
Yeah.
It's usually at home, telling
Zoom.
everyone, can you just be quiet for a little while? I've got a Zoom call. And so it's nice to do it in person. I usually do, because I go on a lot of off-topic podcasts.
Yeah, I've noticed.
And I like doing that because it's shock.
Yeah.
So you're talking to a completely different audience. They have no idea about the carnivore diet, most of them. Funny enough, actually, when I first started, people looked at me like I was an alien.
Yeah.
And now they're like, oh, I've heard about that because so-and-so's done it and they've recovered this and they're really healthy now. But in the beginning, they were like, you're doing what? And they were really shocked.
And I guess that's kind of how veganism was at one point, because not many people were doing that.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, there's been documentaries and things which
everyone knows about
chat
veganism.
about if you want. But and I think Carnivore was going through the early stages that veganism was a while ago.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I think probably in a few years' time, when there's more success stories and there's more people like yourself and myself talking about it, hopefully we'll be in the same space.
It's definitely going to overtake because this actually works. Yeah, like long term. So that's a difference. Yeah, because the thing is, veganism is based on a lie, a complete lie. Unfortunately, sorry guys.
Vegans go carnivore, but I've never seen a carnivore go vegan.
No.
And I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, but people say that to me. Yeah. Oh, well, I was carnivore. I said, well, was you? Yeah. Did you eat just meat? No, but I used to eat meat. But then if you look at a standard diet, it's 70% plants.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, 30% is meat. You know, it's not a lot.
No.
And I used to say, oh, I'm a massive meat eater. I love meat. I'd never give up my meat. And then obviously I started the juicing. But, and funny enough, the more juice detoxes I did, so some of them were a month long, the more I craved meat. Okay. I just needed it. I was like looking at everyone eating meat and thinking, I really need that meat. Yeah. Funny enough, the longer and longer I went on that. So I'm glad that I got past that. And I remember when I did my carb cycle, I was like, I'm never doing juicing again. And I actually got rid of my juicer and I don't need to do that anymore.
I got rid of mine until I left it at my dad's house.
You did? Yeah, I paid good money for mine as well. Yeah, what a waste. And do you remember like getting lots of, you get lots of fruit flies and things and it's just so wasteful.
And you have to use it up by a specific time and you've got to plan ahead and Yeah,
you know, they say, vegans often say, well, you couldn't leave meat out on the side. I can. Yeah. I can. If I put meat out and I put spinach out, meat is going to last longer on that countertop than spinach.
Yeah, 100%.
So, that's a bad argument.
So when you tell people about your diet and you're in the gym and someone asks, what kind of reaction do you get?
They're normally quite shocked because I lift quite heavy.
Yeah.
And I usually have pre the last few years when the gyms locked down and all of that happened, when I was consistent with training, and that was my number one priority, I was lifting really heavy. And I used to have men kind of just stand and watch me all the time and swearing and nudging each other saying, I mean, how do you feel that she's lifting more than you? and then he would see, his friend would say it to him as well. And it was just really quite funny. And I did used to get like men running over saying, wait, don't lift that. And I'd be like, why?
What, for safety?
Yeah. And they would say, this one particular guy ran over and he said, no, it's really heavy. And I said, I know, this is what I do. Yeah. And he was like, no, I don't think you understand. It's really heavy. And I was like, I know. And then he stood back and he allowed me to do it. And he came over and he went, respect to you. Yeah. That's all I've got to say, respect to you. But then when they ask, funny enough, there was a guy that was like, oh, you lift really heavy, you're always in the gym, you're doing really well. What do you do? And I said, I'm on the carnivore diet. And he was like, I'm vegan. He stopped coming to the gym after that. We had a long conversation and he stopped coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've never seen him since?
No. I've never seen him since.
Incredible.
Yeah. Now, the other day I was in the gym and someone came over to me and went, I think I've seen you on a podcast. I keep getting noticed in the gym, which is really bizarre. Yeah. And actually, there's a really funny story. When was this? 2 years ago. I went into the gym and the receptionist, the guy that manages it, pulled me over, the lovely guy, Gordon. And he said, can I just talk to you a minute? I said, yeah. And he was like, I had a phone call from someone. He sounded like he was from Birmingham. Yeah. Right. Guy. Okay. And he said that I'm spreading false news. She's telling everyone to just eat meat and that I need to be banned from the gym. And he tried to get me banned from the gym. And the guy that was on the other end of the phone said, listen, mate, she can do whatever she wants, kind of thing, and told him to get off the phone. But
Jesus.
Yeah, he tried to get me, it's so bizarre. He tried to get me banned from the gym.
I've never heard anything like that before.
No, that's
weird.
the only thing. That's the only time that's happened. But they saw me on social media, saw that I tagged my gym and called them up.
Yeah. Jesus.
But then the other day when I was in there, someone approached me and they said, "Oh, I've seen you on a podcast." And I said, "Oh yeah, I do podcasts." And they were like, "Oh, I've just started the carnivore diet like 9 days ago. I feel so much better." And he was telling me all the health improvements. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's really good."
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mixed bag. I think things are really turning around.
And what do you think? I'm interested to get your take as a woman in this space. I think it's different for a number of reasons. The way you eat and the way you train. In terms of the way you train, I want you to interpret this question however you want, but why is there such a thing as female fitness or women's fitness? Why is it not just fitness? Why do we have to think about it differently for men and women, do you think?
We do have to think about it differently. Like you will see women, I'm guilty for this. Okay. Training the legs and the glutes more than the upper body because men are stronger on the top and women are stronger on the bottom. So we are made differently and we have different needs. So that is why we will train differently. Okay. And you do quite often see women training legs much harder than men. Okay. You know, you see a lot of men that skip leg day.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah. Chicken legs.
Which is really strange, really bizarre. Yeah. Because you can kind of spot them from a mile off. Yeah. Got these big shoulders. And then the legs. It's like, oh.
KFC wings underneath.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't know why they do that.
So when women are getting started in this, whatever diet they're on, let's say carnivore or not, but they're looking to get more into fitness, what do you think they should have differently in their minds as they get started relative to men?
So I feel like they need to not be scared of lifting weights. Okay. And, you know, you see a lot of women year on out and they're on the cardio machines and they never change. And it's really unfortunate because they're there, they're sweating, they're really going for it, they're putting their all in and they don't ever change. And they're scared of the weights, they're scared of looking manly, they're scared of all those things because they've got this perception that if they're going to lift weights, they're going to end up looking manly. Well, you can only do that if you take something, you take some sort of testosterone or something, then you will. Yeah. That will happen. But if you don't, you are a female, you're going to remain female. Nothing's going to change that. Yeah. And you will actually, what happens is your muscles become tighter. So you become smaller. Okay. You might become heavier, which more often than not you will be heavier. Yeah. But you'll be smaller dress size. I had a client before and she could not lose weight. And I worked out, I don't do calories, but I just wanted to get a ballpark of what she was doing. So I wrote down what she was doing and worked it out. And she was eating 900 calories a day, extremely low. Wow. And I actually had 3 clients that week, all on 900 calories, 2 females and 1 male. And because some people, they start the diet and they think carnivore diet. Yeah. So they've got to restrict. Yeah. Because of that word. But they don't have to restrict. It's quite the opposite. Actually, you will have better results if you eat until you're full and you allow your body to do what it needs to do. Yeah. If you constantly starve yourself, you really switch off your hormones that tell you when you're hungry and when you're full. So then you really don't know what you need anymore. You know, people wake up in the morning, they drink coffee, that suppresses their appetite. Yeah. So they're not eating what their body needs and they're restricting. So she was eating 900 calories a day and so was this other lady. One of them was living in Antarctica of all places. Oh, wow. And she was a fitness coach, training every day, working out really hard, but on 900 calories. And I was saying to her, look, you're really damaging your body. You really need to just allow it. And she was vegan before. Okay. But when she moved to Antarctica, she realized very quickly she couldn't be vegan. Yeah. Because there's no plants out there. And you import them in, it's really expensive. So she had to, she then changed to carnivore diet. Found some improvements, but couldn't lose the last bit of weight. And she was really upset about that. So she actually started just eating tallow from the spoon because I was like, if you're craving food and it's within the realms of carnivore diet, eat it. Yeah. And eat it until you're full. So she worked out she was eating 6,000 calories a day and then she started losing weight. Wow. And she couldn't lose weight before that.
I think a lot of people,
abs back.
I think a lot of people underestimate that when you eat food, it's not just about the mass, like how many grams or kilos you're eating. It's about what effect that has on your hormones. Yes. And do you feel as though that education is lost in women that go to the gym in your experience? I think it's lost with most people. Yeah, I agree. The majority. Yeah. Because there's a lot of calories in, calories out bros out there. Yeah. And they're very loud and proud about it. Yeah. I've had run-ins with a few of them. Yeah. And they're like, no, you need to do this. You're not counting your calories right. That's why you're saying this. And I'm like, no. Yeah.
I ate barely anything before, and now I eat, such a lot of food.
Yeah.
There's normally a reason why I'm eating 3,000. It might be that I'm really busy that day and I haven't had time to eat. So it's not that
it's not you're not forcing
I don't go for that number. It's just because on this diet you can, if you need to, carry on with what you're doing and get a few bites and sort of carry on and you're fine. It's not like when you're a carb eater and you're hangry and you're really upset about not eating. You can if you need to skip a meal. I wouldn't advise it, but if you've got a lot on and there's no way of avoiding it. So what I find with women is that their cycle changes a lot.
Okay.
They go from, they can be really heavy cycle and really painful to not a single pain at all. And actually,
I've seen that myself.
They forget they're it's that time of the month. And that happens quite often with me. And there's no symptoms other than the physical.
Yeah.
Zero. You don't get the cravings. You don't get the up and down in moods. You just literally get the physical of the lining of the uterus.
That's it.
Coming away, that's it.
Yeah. I think that's normal. I think
that is normal.
That's what it should be like.
Yes.
And the whole idea of it being painful or restricting you doing this, that's just as a result of our modern diet, in my opinion.
And that is something that I quite often say.
Yeah.
And like people say to me, wow, you've had 4 children. You look amazing. I said, no, I don't. I look how I should.
Yeah.
This should be the norm.
Exactly.
And everything else we see should be the abnormal.
Yeah.
People gaining weight, people being unhappy, all that stuff. That's abnormal.
Yeah.
That what someone does if they eat an appropriate diet, that's normal, I wish that I could, go back in time and have all my pregnancies
as carnivore.
On the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And I believe the outcomes would be better for my children and for myself.
Yeah.
I believe that it would have been better for my skin health, everything. I just believe that it would have just been much better, and I wish I'd known about it.
Yeah.
But I was getting advice at the time from the health officials saying, don't worry about what you're eating, just eat the right amount of calories. So even if you're eating chocolate all day, that's fine. That's how crazy it is.
Yeah. So in terms of those differences in the hormones, is that something you try and change their routine to try and manipulate at all? Or do you just say you don't need to worry about it and it will sort itself out?
With their training?
Yeah.
I don't often help people with their training. I can give them little bits of advice, but because I'm not qualified in the training, I don't want to dip into that area. So I keep it just diet.
Okay.
And people do see me training a lot and they like to watch what I do and things, but it's kind of, I draw a line there because I haven't qualified. I'm doing the course.
Okay.
I haven't qualified just yet. So I'm gonna
PT
wait.
course.
Yeah.
Fine. In terms of the female perspective, obviously you talked about some of the things that are very, obviously that part of the month, that's not something that men have to worry about. Could you give me an idea of any changes to make to the diet that you think helps people in the transition period when it's that time of the month?
I just think that people have to eat until they're full, and that really is.
So no change whether it's that time of the month or not.
Some people do crave dairy around that time of the month.
Yeah.
And it's important to kind of be careful with that one because dairy, you can get carried away with it, obviously.
Yeah.
It can be easy to overconsume because it can be sweet tasting. There's depending on what dairy they're having. There's lactose in it, which is sugar. Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they've got to eat differently around their cycle.
Okay.
But I do find that people do eat more around their cycle. So they're going to be eating more food. Okay. But more of the same. So, but that just comes in with every day on the carnivore diet, because every day you wake up and you think, you go by your natural, I do anyway, go by your natural cues of what you need to eat and how much, and you kind of eat, and then once you're full, you stop. Yeah. And that's it really. It's just so simple.
Cool. And then in terms of the fitness side of things, do you think women have an advantage in any way when it comes to fitness at all?
I feel like a lot of women would say that haven't tried the diet would say that it's the opposite. Okay. But I found that once I'd switched diets, my strength just went through the roof. Really? And I could just, like I was saying, I was getting men kind of crowded and like, wow, what are you doing? And I became really strong. And I always thought I was strong before. Yeah. But I went from, say I always use the leg press as an example. So I use 20 plates. I don't use anything else, 20 kilos. I had 5 aside before being carnivore. But then once I was established on the carnivore diet, I could get 9 plates aside.
Yeah.
So
That's big.
that's heavy.
That's a big increase.
Yeah.
Massive. And you mentioned eating intuitively and listening to your body. Obviously, that gets better over time as you're on a cleaner diet. You said you personally go for around 3 meals a day. Is that something you aim for? Or do you find yourself getting hungry that many times per day?
I don't aim for anything.
Okay.
But I do find that I become hungry and need 3 meals. If I've skipped 1 meal, I will find that I will need to eat quite late.
Okay.
So what I try to do is try to eat my 3 meals earlier on, and then I don't need to eat later on. Okay. Which I find helpful.
And do you find that the people you coach, obviously you coach both men and women, talk to me about because I'm quite intrigued about the number of times people eat. And I was speaking to Richard, that we both know, who was on the podcast recently. And he said he also finds that women generally get hungry more times per day. Do you find the same?
Yeah. I think men can get away with eating 1 meal per day.
Okay.
And feel quite good on that.
Okay.
But women, they may do it, but I think I can spot women that do that because I feel like they do look, obviously I'm not trying to offend anyone, but I do feel like they look a bit depleted.
Okay.
They look older. I feel like it does kind of put their hormones out of whack. I do feel like women need to eat regularly because women are meant to have a little bit of fat on them. They're not meant to be completely fat-free. Yeah. Obviously, neither are men, but women need a higher percentage of fat than men do. Yeah.
And in terms of you mentioned about that particular time of the month, that becomes a lot easier. Mm-hmm. Does that make any changes to train? You said it doesn't make any changes to training, but in terms of the fertility, do you find that it makes a change? Any clients report that makes change to their fertility at all, having kids?
I haven't had any personal experience with that, but I have had personal experience with women that have no cycle, and then they get their cycle back once they start eating enough.
I've seen that.
So that one lady that I was talking about earlier, I didn't actually finish the story on her, but she basically increased her calories quite drastically. This isn't the one in Antarctica, this is another one, and told me that her dress size went down.
Wow.
After increasing her calories. She said that she was able to work out every day. She was feeling happier. She was feeling warmer. Her hair stopped falling out. Her cycle came back. But she weighed herself and the scales went up. So it completely messed with her mind. Yeah. And she went back to, I need to restrict. And she was thinking, I need to restrict. Even though her body composition had improved dramatically, even though her health was improving dramatically, women have a really bad relationship with the scales. Yeah. And actually, I prefer women not to use scales. Yeah. I prefer women to just take pictures. Pictures, side on, front, back, and see if you can see changes over time. Take the same pictures instead of using a scale.
And do you think it's got to be some sort of psychological element to that?
Yes.
Do you think it's that those women they have an image in their mind of what they should look like and they're trying to achieve that?
Yeah, I do. All women have an ideal of what they want to look like. And they just want the quick fix. Yeah. So whereas she was getting there. Yeah. And actually she'd got to such a good place. And I think she'd been a client for probably a year, long time, longest client I've had. And she did a really good job. She lost lots of weight. She was feeling really good about herself. And she kind of, we parted ways. And she went on her journey. And then she did come back to me recently and said that she had joined one of the carnivore communities. Okay. Did a few things and actually made her, she came back to me and she said, you're the only one I've lost weight with. And she's now gained weight. And I think when women start gaining weight, they go into panic and then they start restricting. They go back to old habits of restricting and doing everything that she knows isn't going to help. Yeah. Because I taught her all these things before. So she was my longest client. And then she did come back recently. Obviously, I would have preferred her to come back and say, I've got this going on, that going on. No, but she was actually a bit distressed.
And why do you think it is she so quickly went off?
So when she went off She went to a carnivore community and they were implementing fasting.
Ah, because it was a fasting that
So
made
she
the
started
difference.
fasting and then she
Okay.
started gaining weight.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just unfortunate.
And what is your view on fasting as part of
I'm
the
not a
diet and
fasting
fitness?
advocate. I did do a fasting course with Sean,
Yeah.
but I didn't ever complete it because it just didn't align with what I thought was right. I did it because I liked listening to all the different, different things about it, but I didn't actually get the qualification because I thought I don't want to pursue it. So I didn't.
Yeah. I mean, even myself, I don't fast. I don't know what your opinion is, but I think when someone has a particular goal and you understand that fasting is a tool, there may be an appropriate time to use that tool appropriately for that goal, but it's not something that you just do by default constantly all the time.
The thing is, when I was doing my fasting course, the thing you shouldn't do is have a eating window every day. The body becomes used to that, and anything outside of that, it can easily gain, and you can get yourself into some trouble that way. So if you are going to fast, actually alternate days fasting is going to be better because it's going to keep your body guessing. Okay. But I still don't really advocate for that.
Yeah, same.
What happens when people fast is they start thinking about food all the time. Okay. Because they're hungry.
Yeah.
And then they're getting angry. They're feeling tired.
Hypoglycemic.
Yeah. And I tried it because when I was with all the coaches before, we used to have a meeting once a week. Yeah. And that was when we had Coach Raymond, and he's obviously really successful. He's an amazing coach. And he implements a lot of fasting. So he was like, come on, Rachel, just do a fast, 48-hour fast. I was like, all right, I'll try it. Because I thought I'd try it to see if I like it and what happens so that I can speak about it with my clients. I just felt so hypoglycemic on it. Yeah. I just felt awful that I stopped. I think I did get 24 hours or, maybe 26. But I said, it's not doing, I feel good. I don't need to do it. So I stopped. So I didn't see why I should put my body through that stress. Yeah. And obviously, a lot of people talk about autophagy, but you can get autophagy going to the gym. Yeah, absolutely. So you don't have to starve yourself and do the opposite. People say, oh, when we was hunters and gatherers, we never would have had food 3 times a day. Well, we also would never force ourselves to not eat. Exactly. We would have eaten if we could. Opportunity, we would have eaten, as many times as we can. So I don't think that makes sense either. And some people can't get enough food in their eating window to sustain themselves throughout the whole day. Yeah. So I think some people do have a goal of 1 meal a day, and that can be quite damaging because they're going against what their body's telling them. They're ignoring all their hunger cues. And in the end, it just makes them binge. Yeah. And then they end up, what happens is you're more likely to cheat on your diet if you're restricting. Yeah, because you're not happy at the end of the day. And I think that's a key. Yeah. If you're doing something for the sake of doing it and you're unhappy while doing it, it's never going to be a lasting change, I think. No, and then you're focusing on that one thing. Exactly. And then all of a sudden, the cakes look really good because you're really hungry. I know. When you're full on meat, none of that stuff looks like food. It just looks like nothing. Like, I'd rather eat my bottle. Yeah. I look at cakes now going past a bakery. Yeah. And I've no interest. No interest, zero. It's funny the amount of clients that say, and I say, you make sure that you're eating enough. You make sure that your electrolytes are balanced. Yeah. And you will, in the end, not look at that food like it's food. And they say to me, there is no way, Rachel, like I think about food all the time. I'm craving food all the time. A few months into coaching, Rachel, it's happened. It's actually happened. I never would have believed it would. Yeah. And then they're really happy and they don't have to think about food. It's actually more freeing this way because people say it's really restrictive. Yeah. It's not restrictive. No. I tell you what's restrictive is constantly thinking about food, constantly, like before, when I was unhappy, being depressed. Yeah. Not going out, not living, not experiencing life. Yeah. That's restrictive. What you put in your mouth, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy everything that I eat. Yeah. Every meal that I have, I enjoy it. Same. But it's different to when people are chemically induced to cake and, they're addicted. With all the additives in there. And so much in there. Yeah. And it's designed for you to become addictive. Yeah. And to be able to overeat it. Yeah. Which people do very easily. How many people just sit and they say, right, I'm going to have one biscuit and have the whole pack. Yeah, Pringles, eh? And then Pringles aren't even potato, are they?
No, they're not. They're like
just some mushed up thing.
And then put it into a shape.
Yeah, and then obviously they're adding like shavings of wood to food, and
Hey, shavings of wood.
Yeah, like
I've never seen
cellulose,
that. Oh wow.
Yeah. Because that's what's in. Like if you buy grated cheese.
Yeah.
It's little shavings of wood that stop it from clumping together.
No way. I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah.
And you mentioned also, there's a time when sometimes people, they feel depressed, they don't want to go out, all those sorts of things. Do you find that there's a difference in the genders in terms of which has that more, perhaps, in terms of
the depressive side?
Yeah.
I don't actually.
But even.
Yeah, because I've had males that are severely depressed and turn their life around.
Okay.
There is obviously a fellow coach who I used to be on the same coaching platform, Brett, and he was severely depressed. He was, he didn't want to live, and now he is, what is he called? Happy, helpful carnivore, I think he's called.
Okay.
And he's happy all the time. He's got a really good life. He's really happy. Him and his wife, everything's changed for him. So I do think that the diet is completely life-changing in every way. Yeah. Because, if you're feeding your body what it needs, you walk taller, you're happier, and then you have a better impact on other people. Yeah. So then that impacts their day as well, and they go off happier, Yeah. So it's not just with yourself, and it does make a big difference, I think.
100%. And when people go into this way of eating, as I know some people who are watching this now probably in that camp, and they're not, and they're feeling that way, and they'll want to go, well, how long before I feel great again? Do you find there's a certain time frame where people start to feel better?
I think with anything mental health-wise, they have to be really strict. No seasoning, no plants whatsoever.
Okay.
To get good results, to get the best results.
Yeah.
And the fastest results that you can.
Mm-hmm.
I think mental health can change pretty quickly.
I agree. Yeah, I've seen that.
I think skin takes longer.
Yeah.
People that have got eczema and psoriasis, but mental health, I think it can change pretty quickly. I found that mine did.
Okay.
And it's amazing when it changes.
What kind of time frame are you talking weeks, months?
I think it's different with different people, and the success is different to how much they trust the process.
Sure.
Are they restricting?
Yeah.
Are they still having the odd something in there? And like I said, when you've got mental health issues, you need to go completely cut out all the plants to recover that quite quickly.
Okay. So let me challenge you on that then. Mm-hmm. Do you think sometimes there's a too quick a speed to transition as well? Because sometimes people say, well, you need your gut microbiome to kind of adjust to what you're eating. So where do you find the balance is? What do you kind of transition?
I think mentally, some people don't have the option. Okay. Mentally, some people have to switch all or nothing. Okay. Because if they do it little by little, then they're going to throw in the towel and they're going to, cheat and go back to their old ways. But the people that say, I cannot have this food anymore, I usually try to break it down into weeks as well. Because, if you say to someone, you can never have crisps again, they're going to be like, quickly run to the kitchen. They're going to eat all their crisps and they're going to say, right, I'm starting this tomorrow, so I'm going to eat everything.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not the way to do it. So if you do more of a gentle approach, where a lot of my clients do jump straight in, and I know that there's quite a few people out there would say that you shouldn't do that and that you should transition slowly. But I've found really good results with, as long as they're not on lots of medications, and if they're on a lot of medications, they will have to transition slowly. Yeah. But if they're okay and it's just kind of maybe like depression and it's body composition that they want to change, they can jump straight in. I know there's probably quite a few people out there now that are like, no, transition.
I think everyone is different, to be honest, because my opinion is there's two sides to it. One is the actual biological side, like the gut microbiome, great. But then the other side is exactly what you've just said, which is the mental side. And there's a price to pay for being too quick or too slow in both of those things. Yeah. There may be a severe price to pay if you transition too quick in the biological side, in the gut side. But if that's a smaller price to pay than the mental side, who am I to judge that person?
Yeah, I think that the mind is very powerful. Yeah. And where the mind goes, the body follows. So if you need to have that black and white, the best thing you can do is jump all in. I did, and I didn't have any side effects, funny enough.
Really?
But obviously I went from keto.
Oh, yes, you did, yeah.
I went from keto to carnivore, so it is slightly different. Yeah. But I didn't have one single side effect. And by day 3, I was like, wow. the mental clarity, everything. I was like I remember saying to the people around me at the time, I feel like it's keto on steroids. Like I feel so much better. I feel like I've got no health issues. And when people say to me now, what health issues do you have? And I'm like, none. I can't think of anything. There's nothing now. And before I'd be like, I have this, and like I would have eczema, not eczema, but dandruff, which I believe actually now, looking back, is probably psoriasis in my scalp, achy knees. I had like this weird patch of dry skin on both my ankles that when I'd go and get my pedicures done, they would try and file off and things. And that just went. And funny enough, before, I would often have to file my feet to keep them smooth before the diet. And now I never have to do that. They're just smooth.
Nice.
Which is funny. It's funny. You wouldn't think that a diet can impact you that way. No. I never would have thought that I would stop having cramps in the monthly cycle because of a diet. If people told me all these things, all the things I thought was normal, and they're really not normal.
No, and it takes something
normal
drastic.
Feels good.
Exactly. Normal shouldn't be an issue. Otherwise, how would we all as a species be alive today? Normal should be feeling good. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
You mentioned something briefly there about mental clarity, and you get that mental clarity. I want to ask a little bit about that because I'm guessing you get people or clients, should I say, sometimes that come to you who are in the menopause. And it's certainly my patients that have menopause, one of the things they complain about is the brain fog. Do you have anyone, or do you have any experience in people giving you feedback in what it's done for that particular part of their life, be it brain fog or any other kind of menopause symptoms?
I've had people that are on, like, that are meant to be, gone through the change. And actually then their cycle comes back. Funny enough. But I think mental clarity, that happens pretty quickly. That can happen in the first week. Depending on how well they're doing. If they're not balancing their electrolytes, they can have a hard time. They can get the headaches and, the flu-like symptoms. But if they're actually being mindful of the electrolytes and they're listening to what advice I give them about salt in their foods and stuff, because I know there are some carnivores out there, after they've been carnivore for a few years, they can go without salt. I'm not one of those. I feel side effects if I don't have salt. So I keep that in, and actually I carry a little salt pot with me.
And so I'm intrigued then, which brand of salt do you personally prefer?
I was using Redmond's for a while. Then I have been using Pink Himalayan, but I know that's had some bad press recently. At the moment, I've just been given a load of Celtic sea salt.
That's what I use,
so I've got a little vial.
I do as well, actually. Oh, you got it with you, nice.
In my bag,
Did you put any in that water by any chance?
No, I didn't actually. I missed a trick, didn't I? I should have. So.
And what about electrolytes? Is there any particular brand that you get your clients to have a go at?
Well, I find Richard's brand very good. And that's what you've got there.
It is indeed, cherry flavour.
So his is obviously the best in the UK.
I love it.
I was working with a different company for a while. But I'm no longer really working with them. So I just really, at the moment, use a lot of salt. Or I use Richard's Keto Pro.
Keto Pro electrolytes, no problem. And in terms of composition, how do you, in terms of your experience with people are going this way, they're eating, regardless of which gender you are, the diet is the same, right? You don't need to change too much. But they're also going to be training and doing fitness at the same time. In terms of the changes in body composition, do you notice that genders respond differently to the same training stimulus? I know you said that women kind of tend to store more fat. Do you, beyond that, any other changes that women can expect different to men when they start training?
I do find the majority of men lose fat a lot quicker. And that can be quite upsetting for women, especially if they're in a couple and they're doing it together. And they're like, we're doing the same. The woman is doing the cooking. And she's like, really? But, we can be our own worst enemies and we can restrict. So most women restrict, unfortunately. So that can really slow the process down.
And in terms of achieving the ideal body composition, you don't tell people to train any different to achieve a certain look at all? Not for people that are competing, general everyday people.
I don't advocate lots of cardio. And obviously there's some studies looking at that. And actually when you're doing a lot of cardio, you see them women that are, on the cross trainers day in, day out, and they're not changing. The science behind that is actually if you're doing that, the body adjusts and your metabolic rate will just slow down to in line to stop you from losing too much weight. So it can be counterproductive to do that. So I think that training will help everyone, lifting weight, lifting some, but obviously you've got to enjoy what you're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you only enjoy the CrossFit, well, maybe you're going to have to do that. And maybe one day you might change your mind, but you're not going to get great results. Although with saying that, there are some women that I've coached before that don't train at all. And they're like, oh, I've got more muscle and I've lost a lot of fat. So I do find that the diet is really muscle sparing and really good for muscle building.
And what you said, it can be disheartening for people in a couple. And when the woman sees the man.
Yes, it can be.
And when that woman is in that position, is there anything you say to them or get them to do to kind of pick them up a little bit?
Well, sometimes it can just be that they are restricting.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, oh, they're thinking, oh, he's losing and I'm not, so I'm going to eat a little bit less. You know, when I first started out, I would say, okay, I'm going to eat up until, what time was it? 7? Yeah. I'm not going to eat after that. Okay. So that would be my restriction. Okay. And I may be starving. And I'm
so it's
not,
like a time
eating.
Restriction rather than a calorie restriction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I found that things changed pretty drastically once I'd stopped doing that and just started listening to my body. And actually what you can do is make sure you get your meals in earlier on. Yeah. So that you don't have to eat later on. Okay. But if I'm hungry later on, then I will eat later on. And it is usually if I've missed a meal.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
And when someone is in that situation, your advice is don't restrict, keep eating the same diet.
I normally tell them to trust the process.
Okay.
And that we're all different. Yeah. I normally listen to what they're doing. And then usually when I'm tweaking things, I find that there's been some sort of over-restriction and they're ignoring their hunger cues. Okay. Maybe they're getting up and they're having coffee before their food, which I don't advocate for. So if they're doing that, they need to change that. If the coffee has to stay in, then they have to do that after the food. Okay. So the first thing that they need to do in the morning is get up and eat. Yeah. So what I do is if someone's struggling with weight loss, I actually, and it may sound mad, say that they have to eat within 30 minutes of getting up. Okay. So once they wake up, eat within 30 minutes, even if it's just, some eggs, some egg yolks. Yeah. Something that's got a good amount of fat in there. Yeah. And why do you advocate for coffee after food instead of before? Is it to do with the appetite suppression? Yes. Coffee is obviously a plant.
That as well, yeah.
Yeah. And it's obviously got its own pesticide built in it, which is caffeine. Yeah. There's a lot of side effects. There's a big debate on coffee. Yeah. But I think when I've looked into the studies of coffee, they're quite weak. Correlation studies, and I don't think that they're very good.
Completely agree. Yeah. Completely agree.
So all of the health benefits that are claimed with, to be, you must drink coffee, it's so good for you. It's this, not so long ago they were saying drink red wine and it's good for you.
I know.
So smoking is good for you.
Exactly.
So don't always listen to mainstream advice, is what I'm saying with that one. But yeah, so if you get up in the morning and you have coffee, you are filling your belly with coffee instead of food. So you're suppressing your appetite. So your body is calling for nutrients and you're giving it coffee, which is a plant. So if you're getting up instead and you're having some eggs, and then you'll find actually you'll have a better day that way. Okay. I don't always, so when my clients first start with me, if they've got a habit where they're drinking like say Diet Coke or coffee or something, I say, let's tackle the diet first and let's tackle the drinks later. Okay. So although we know your diet, you're not going to feel optimal having those in. Yeah. Doing everything at once can be too overwhelming and can make them throw in the towel. Yeah. So let them have that little thing. Yeah. But just time it right. Yeah. So make sure you're eating in the morning. Okay. And your stomach is filling up with food and not a drink.
That's good advice, actually, because if you prioritize the right stuff, you'll want...
Less likely.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's a really good tip, actually. I've not heard that one. Yeah. That's good.
Less likely.
I'm going to steal that from my patients as well.
It's a good one.
And in terms of timing of meals, you said obviously try and eat for that particular category of people, try and eat after you get up within 30 minutes. In terms of the other meals during the day, is there any kind of no-go zones in terms of don't eat this close to bed or don't eat this close to training or anything like that?
So I don't say that unless someone's having an issue with their glucose. Okay. So if someone's having an issue with their glucose, then I will say you have to have a cut-off in the evening. Don't eat too late. Make sure that you have to be mindful. Make sure you're eating enough in the daytime so you're not hungry in the evening. You won't need to eat. And then you find that And obviously I implement 10-minute walks as well with that
Yeah.
after eating, because that's really helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is the only time that I would say have a cut-off.
Mm-hmm.
But I generally say don't ignore your hunger cues. As long as you're eating within the carnivore realms of food.
Just go for it.
Yes, but be clever about it.
Okay.
If you're going to eat earlier on.
Okay.
And then you won't need to eat later.
Yeah.
But if you miss that meal and then you're hungry, you're going to have to eat later.
Yeah. Do you find that people who eat close to bedtime struggle in some particular way? Do you feel as that that's not a good idea for any particular reason at all? I'm thinking about people that maybe will come home late from work or something like that.
No, not necessarily. I mean, so there's lots of things that are not ideal. So there's some people that can only train in the evening. And obviously we know that goes against our hormones. And when you're training in the evening, you're actually, you're having to use cortisol instead of your melatonin, which should be coming out and lowering and getting you ready for bed.
Yeah.
So, but some people can only train in the evening. So you have to kind of make it fit with your life, because we live in modern times. And unfortunately, some of the times of those things go against nature. Yeah. Obviously, we should all be thinking about circadian rhythm, but that's difficult with some people. Yeah. Some people have jobs where they've got to be in front of a laptop all the time. Obviously, they can use blue light blockers and things like that to minimize the screen, the screen brightness. But yeah, so we do live in a time where we can't always live naturally. Yeah. And that can be damaging towards your hormones. But I feel like the main factor is food. Okay. And if you really have that base, it's such a good base, it kind of allows for a bit of deviating from the natural way. If someone's training in the evening, I don't know, let's say they come home from work at like 5:30 or something like that, and they don't stay up, they don't go to bed too late, and the training at, I don't know, they get home in the gym like 6 to 7, something along those lines. But when they get back, if they're feeling a little bit hungry, do you personally think it's fine to still eat then, a big meal? Personally, I would. Okay. Yeah, I would, because that's what their body's saying they need. They've just done a training session. They may not have eaten because they've been working. Yeah. But obviously, as I said, with training in the evening, even things like if you're going to train in the morning, you'll find you're stronger in the morning than if you're training in the evening. It might not be that much different, but there will be a difference, because you're actually going in line with your hormones. Because in the morning, you've got those, you've got the strength in the morning because you've got to get up, you've got the cortisol. Yeah. And that is going to give you strength. But if you're leaving it till later, when your cortisol is going down and your melatonin is going up, then it goes against your hormones to train, and it will make it less effective. But obviously, training is going to be priority if that's the only time you can train. Do you think people in that situation would do well maybe to try and eat while working, so they don't need to eat after the gym in the evening? They can do, because you don't have to eat after training. Yeah. If you've covered your base all day, you don't have to eat after training. Okay. But if you've missed a meal, like I said, then sometimes you have to eat in the evening. Sure. Sometimes people have a job where they can't eat throughout the day. There's a lot of people that when they're in their jobs, there's shift work, and there's biscuits and cakes and things, and that's the only option. So they have to wait. But obviously with those people, they can take their own food. Yeah, true. And what about people who train before work? So let's say someone gets up pretty early. I can think of an example. Let's say they get up at like 6. They're in the gym like 6:30 to 7:30, something along those lines. Do you advocate for people to eat before they go? Or do you think leave it and train fasted? I feel like that instance is different with men and women. Okay. For me personally, if I don't eat before I go training, then I will feel not so good, and I will have symptoms, feel a bit hypoglycemic. Yeah. So I like to eat before I go, but I find that men can and often do train fasted, and they don't have an issue with it. Yeah, I've done that quite a lot. It's never been an issue. So that's an interesting difference then, I guess, between men and women. Is that something that you specifically tell women to avoid in terms of training early? I usually like to I don't tell them to avoid training early. Okay. But I do say to, just have some egg yolks or something before you go. Just start that off. Yeah. And then you'll feel better. And the reports that I get back is they feel stronger. They're able to do more in the gym, and it actually impacts them really positively. So it's really helpful. Yeah. So you're using that as a pre-workout. Yeah. In a quote unquote. Well, the pre-workout, my actual official pre-workout, most of the time is salt. Yeah.
I'm not that dissimilar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I take water with some electrolytes in, which has the salt in there. And then if it's a day where I need a bit of extra energy, I'm going for a big lift or something like that, I might take Richard's Keto Pro's raspberry bomb ketones.
I call that rocket fuel.
Yeah.
The first time I tried that, it was really funny because so he sent me some to try.
Yeah.
And I tried it and it was about 2:00 in the afternoon. I couldn't sleep till 4 a.m.
Wow.
I had so much energy that I sorted my whole house out. I got everything done. I was like, wow. And I was calling my family and they were saying, you're talking really fast because I'm not used to having caffeine anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a little bit of caffeine in there. And I call it the rocket fuel. It's what I find with that is it's amazing. There's no side effects and it's actually a really good product.
Yeah, there's no like come down at all afterwards. It's just a nice, smooth feeling.
Yeah, it's very good.
And that leads us nicely on to supplements, actually. Do you personally use any supplements at all for any purpose?
I don't.
Nothing at all?
I used to use, when I first started, I used magnesium glycinate.
Okay, for sleep,
and I advocate that for people just to start off with because most people are depleted of magnesium. And then once they're a few months in, you can normally tell when you don't really need it anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
And that can kind of taper off and you won't need to keep buying that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you're not having a lot of carbs, you're not depleting your body of the nutrients that you need. So you don't need to take all those things.
Sure.
So the only thing supplement-wise I would say is salt.
Yeah.
And when I have my electrolyte drinks, I've just run out, but I usually have like the Keto Pro.
Yeah.
You know, the electrolytes or something, but that is as far as it goes.
Okay. And then what about clients? Do you, when they're transitioning into carnivore, you said you get them sometimes to look at magnesium.
Yes.
Do you get them to have a look at the salts and the electrolytes and anything else potentially in the transition period?
So I give them a choice.
Yeah.
I do say they have to get a good quality salt and they do have to salt their food. And I usually advise them to measure out like 1 3/4 teaspoon of salt in a pot and use that up throughout the day and refill that and use that up throughout the day. Yeah. Just to get them in the habit of using more salt. Okay. Because some people have been scared of salt and they think that they're going to get hypertension, you know, all that kind of stuff. So we go down that route of getting them used to the salt and enjoying it. Yeah. And actually, salt is so good on meat. You know, people say, oh, but you don't season your meat. Yeah. And it's like, salt's really good.
Tastes really nice.
Yeah, you don't need anything else. So I tell them to salt their food like that. I may advise them to get one of the electrolytes because some people don't always like lots of salt, too much salt. So the electrolytes help. I don't actually use a potassium supplement in the beginning with my clients. I just basically advise them to eat a lot of red meat and salt and the magnesium.
Yeah, I think everything is in the meat anyway. Yes. At some point. My opinion on that is supplements generally I will look at during the transition because they're, like you said, they've been depleted. Yes. But then once they're fully in it, they don't really need anything. No. What's your opinion on protein powders?
So protein powders, obviously there's some good, they're better brands on the market. Probably all aware of Equip. And they do a very good high quality beef protein. They're absolutely not necessary whatsoever. Yeah. You only need to eat meat. Yeah, drink water. Same. Add salt. Yeah. But some people feel like they might want to make recipes and things to help the transition easier. And obviously you can make a lot of recipes with protein powders and things. You know, some people are really inventive, aren't they? Yeah. Like they can make bread. I've never done it, but they can make bread out of
protein powder. Yeah.
Ingredients. That's like usually using egg white powder. I haven't done that, but I haven't had the desire. Just give me a steak. Yeah.
When people are transitioning and they're relatively early and they don't have that trust in hunger signaling and satiety signaling, do you think protein powders could play a role in that to make sure they're eating enough? Because I think you'll feel full differently with a actual food versus a drink.
Personally, I usually say to people starting out to avoid anything that's got a sweet taste to it. Okay. Because you are keeping the sweet taste alive and you're, you know, constantly then thinking about sweet tasting things. Yeah. I think once people are adapted and they're fully in on carnivore and they're, you know, not easily tempted by foods and stuff, it makes it easier to dip into these things and dip out and, you know, you don't get addicted and you don't need it. Okay. But for people starting out that have got a sweet tooth and they have addictive tendencies, they can become addicted. and it can kind of spiral where they end up having those things more.
Yeah.
So for instance, I had someone that was making these, I'd call them fat teas that I used to make actually. And it was literally boiled water, vanilla collagen and butter.
Okay.
But then what happens is that's quicker than making a steak.
Yeah.
So when they get hungry,
they
have that instead.
Yeah.
But that is a lot more energy.
Yeah.
Than, it's easy to, it doesn't feel much of a hole. So you can keep drinking them. You can drink a lot more. You can drink way more than you need to. It's easy to overconsume. So I find that a lot of people that are putting butter in their teas don't see a lot of changes in their body composition until they cut that out. Okay.
Interesting. And do you get people to use specific types of butter when they cook at all?
So there's better quality butter.
Yeah. And what in your mind is a better quality one to use?
The best quality, there's one in Waitrose.
Okay.
And is it Insigne? It's a blue French butter and it's raw.
Yeah.
So that is really good, really tasty.
Yeah.
And it's just made with raw milk.
And you mentioned a really interesting word. You said addiction, or they're addicted. I completely agree. And I think a lot of people don't realize they have a carb addiction until you give them this opportunity to cut it out, and they realize they can't because they're thinking about it all the time. They're tasting it in the mouth when it's not even there. And if you think about, let's take an extreme example, like a drug addict, if you try and pull them away from the, I don't know, heroin or something like that, they just want it all the time. They can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
There's no difference between that and carbs when you try and pull people away from the carbs. How do you manage people who have that addiction? Maybe people who don't even realize they're addicted. How do you get them to transition over out of that?
So I think the main key is eating enough. So there is a saying.
So you're full and you don't want any more.
Yes, there is a saying, eat enough meat so you're not thinking about the cake, just really fill yourself up. When you are absolutely full, it's really hard to kind of look and think that you want these other things.
Yeah.
And the longer you do that for, the more your body will then start asking for what it needs and not what the chemically induced cravings are telling your body to ask for.
Sure.
So it just makes it easier. So I'd always think that it's eating enough, not restricting. People that start the diet and they say, okay, I'm going to start the carnivore diet. I'm going to do 1 meal a day.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat lots of organ meat.
Yeah.
These people fail. They go off the diet. You don't see long-term carnivores eating lots of organ meat. It's never seen.
Yeah.
You see people, always the people that, I know I've gone off subjects, but
that's all right.
The people that you see eating, really advocating for organ meats. You have to have this organ meat, that organ meat. No one's liking the taste of these organ meats. They're eating testicles and things. You can't tell me that you're enjoying that. And then what ends up happening with those people is they have to reintroduce something.
Yeah.
They get an electrolyte imbalance and they've just had too much. It's very concentrated with the nutrients.
Yeah.
And there is such thing as having too much.
I agree. Completely agree. In terms of the people that come to you for coaching, obviously there'll be a diet element, there'll be a fitness element, maybe a mental element as well. Could you give me an idea what the most common goals are when people come to you in terms of why they've come to you, what they want to achieve?
The most common goal is weight loss.
Okay.
And that's probably the least enjoyment I get out of a client, because I like the ones that are, for instance, I had a client that was bedbound and, every time she was on her cycle, she couldn't do anything and she couldn't work, she couldn't exercise. She had a cat and she wanted to look after the cat, but she couldn't properly because she's in bed all the time. So coaching her month after month and seeing her changes, and then her eventually saying, I can now go to the gym and I can exercise. I'm going to stop looking for a job.
Yeah. Wow.
I think that's really rewarding to see that change in someone's life.
Yeah.
And obviously weight loss is life-changing as well, with the confidence and with mental health as well. But I don't think it compares to when someone's really in a bad way and then you see all these different health issues disappearing, which is really nice.
And do you find there's a difference in goals between men and women? Are men more likely to do this than women?
I don't think so. I do get a lot of female clients. And weight loss is usually across the board.
Okay.
Something that everyone is after.
And when they come to you, I think part of what you have to do and I have to do is correct myths that they have. And there's a lot of those. And I think a lot of people watching this will have those myths without realizing they are a myth. What are the most common myths that you have to debunk for people that come to you?
The big one is cholesterol.
Okay.
I had to go through that with my mum even. At the time, when I started the diet, my mum was doing no meat Monday.
Okay.
And she would do that every Monday.
Did you watch The Game Changers by any chance?
Oh, I did. It was so painful to watch because I had knowledge by that time.
Yeah.
And obviously I knew that Sean and everyone were doing a film to debunk it.
Yeah. That
was quite painful.
Yeah.
But what I liked is all the rebuttals that came out, all the debunking.
Yeah.
Because it was very easy to debunk. The Game Changers was interesting.
Yeah.
Very biased.
Yeah.
Cherry picking with everything and, doing studies on people, when they strapped the thing to their, what did they do? They strapped it to their leg and they were...
I can't even remember now.
Yeah, so they did all these studies, but I think I did stick it out, but I was like watching it like that. Like, what are they saying? But yeah, so when they say meat causes cancer... Yeah. That's another huge one.
Common one, yeah.
And obviously I've looked at quite a few of the studies and then you see that they don't put down that actually some of these people involved in the studies are vegan, vegetarian, and they don't put that down as a conflict of interest, which is quite naughty.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the study and it may be a survey that was sent out every 2 years.
Yeah, which is not really a study, is it?
They're sending a survey out. But when I actually started looking into science, it really blew my mind how weak it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And to think that, if you ask someone, what did you eat last week?
Yeah.
They're not going to give you an answer unless they're carnivore and they know what they're eating every day. It's pretty simple. But if they're on a standard diet, they're not going to be able to tell you.
No.
Now, if you send them out a survey once every 2 years and say, right, now I want to know how many cups of green beans you've had in that time. How many? And the thing is, people want to portray a better version of themselves as well. So there's a lot of answers on those studies where they pretend they were better than they were because in their mind they were.
Yeah.
And there's the healthy user bias, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Where if someone's going to become, we've been told for years red meat causes cancer. So those people that are eating red meat predominantly don't care about their health.
Yeah.
So they're smokers, they're drinkers, they're doing all these unhealthy habits. And then you get the vegans and they're actually looking to benefit their health. They're changing their health. So they're going to start running, they're going to start going to the gym. They're doing all the opposite.
Yeah, cutting out all the processed stuff, no smoking, no alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's completely different. And they don't always adjust for that. And you can see that quite clearly in the studies. Yeah. And there's a lot of, you can correlate with so many different things. And it doesn't mean that that's the cause.
Yeah.
So there was a big vegan recently that's called me out and said that they want to do a video with, like a podcast with me, a live. I haven't accepted yet because he's a bit of a psychopath.
I think I can guess who it is.
Vegan gains. Yeah. So I didn't accept, and he was kind of, so you just don't want, you're scared of the debate. And I was like, no, I've just never desired to have a debate with you. Never. Yeah. And, because I used to watch his channel years ago and he's got really bad view on children and families.
Oh, right. Didn't know that.
Yeah. He said something about killing children and wants to stamp on them and all this. There's a video. If you type it in, vegan gains and children.
Wow.
It's really quite shocking.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he wanted to debate. And I said to him recently, okay, I'll come and debate you if you send me the studies that you're talking about in your lives. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. He hasn't sent me them yet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So obviously I have the same myths in my patients, cholesterol, cancer, all these sorts of things. In terms of specific goals, obviously you've mentioned weight loss. Do people come to you trying to gain weight as well, like muscle mass and things?
I have had that. It's not as common.
Yeah.
I do see it in the wider community.
Okay.
And you do see people that have been on the vegan diet and especially the fruitarian diet.
Yeah.
And they've lost their teeth and they're very, very, very skinny.
Could you just explain, for those that haven't heard of it, because some of our viewers won't have, could you just explain what the fruitarian diet means?
The fruitarian diet is just fruit, just basically fruit all day. And you quite often see them eating. They usually move to a hot country.
Yeah.
And then they start eating all these like durians and all these different fruits. And they say how amazing they feel. But you see them. There was one particular guy and he couldn't do one push-up.
Wow.
And his arms, he literally looked like a skeleton. And it was really, really worrying. And funny enough, I found his channel recently, probably a month ago, and he's now on the carnivore diet.
No way.
And he looks so different. He looks so young. He looks so healthy. And he can now work out. So there's some people that go from years of being on the vegan diet and they accumulate some autoimmune issues, and then they go on the carnivore diet and they completely reverse it. They gain their weight. I do think the carnivore diet will get you to where your body should be.
Yeah, where your genetics kind of determine it to be. Yeah.
So there are some people that want to go like below what their natural genetics are. And for those people, they will have to go and do different steps, like maybe doing like a fat cycle within the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
Maybe their last meal might have to have less fat or be low fat. When you say low fat, it's never going to be low fat really when you're just eating meat, but a lower fat meal in the evening and have your fat earlier on. People can find that if they're well established on the diet and they're trying to do like maybe a bodybuilding competition or something, then they find that quite helpful.
Could you give us an example? So let's say someone's in that situation. You want them to have a meal that's more fat focused earlier on the day and less fat focused in the evening. Could you give us some example plates of what that day might look like?
Yeah, so you can have maybe some steak with some butter on top earlier on. And then as you go on, you can maybe have some whitefish, which is obviously low fat.
Yeah.
You can have some chicken, which, I mean, I don't ever advocate for chicken breast.
Yeah, same.
But if you're doing this diet and you're trying to get unnaturally lean, then you have to do unnatural things to do that.
Yeah, bodybuilding is not natural, right?
It's not, no. Yeah, so doing this kind of fat cycle, we did do like a diet plan where earlier on it's 70% fat, 30%, 70-30. And then as you go on, you flip that number.
Okay.
So
you find that doing it that way allows them to gradually lower the body fat leading up to a competition.
Yeah, it can do. I would say the majority of people don't need to do that.
Okay.
But for the few people that just want to lose a bit more, and they're struggling, and they like I said, they want to do things that are unnatural to their body set.
Yeah.
Then they're going to have to do unnatural things to get that way.
100%. And I know you mentioned you're doing your PT course at the minute. I don't know how far along you are, but I want to pick your brains on training.
Okay.
So let's say someone is looking to do or looking to achieve a little bit of weight loss. You've obviously spoken to them about the diet. You've given them their diet plan. Could you maybe talk us through what a week of training or a 2-week cycle of training, whatever time frame you want to look at, what that would look like to try and optimize for that particular type of goal?
Yeah, so obviously they've got to enjoy what they're doing. So it'd be different with different people. But I find a split that's helpful is to do, so you want to know the split, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for women, it's going to be leg focused.
Okay.
So you do legs on Monday.
Yeah.
And then back and biceps, chest and triceps. And then after that, you would do maybe calves and shoulders.
Okay.
And then legs again.
Okay. And why would you change that for a man trying to lose weight?
Yes, I would say women need to do 2 to 3 leg sessions a week. Yeah. But men don't need to do that.
Okay.
Men need to do less. They can sometimes just get away with doing 1.
Do you feel that's because of the natural inclination to have more strength in different parts of the body and you're trying to offset for that in the training routine?
I think most men enjoy the upper body more as well.
Yeah.
So
I think I agree with that. You can see them posing in the mirror and stuff.
Yeah, they really want to put their all into the chest.
Yeah.
Chest and chest.
Yeah.
I mean, some men train chest way too much.
Yeah.
But, it is. There is a difference with that. Like women, 2 to 3 leg sessions. If you want to, nice pec glutes, that's what you're going to need to do.
So could you give us an idea of specific exercises perhaps? Because obviously if you're doing the same body part multiple times a week or a split, like you say, do you advocate that to just do the same, let's say it's leg press, do you just do leg press every time? Or do you think switch it up?
Some people say switching it up is because, your body can get used to it and things. I actually don't agree with that. I think that if you focus on certain movements, you can gain strength.
Yeah.
And you can really change doing that. But if you're changing from all these different exercises all the time, then you're not going to really gain momentum with that. But, for women, it depends on what they're enjoying. Sometimes they might want to separate out the legs.
Okay.
Have a glute focused. Have a quad focused.
So different parts of the legs on different days. Okay.
And people can find that quite helpful. But for women, I think it's totally achievable and possible to train 2 or 3 times, even if you're doing both, the glutes and the quads.
Well, so let's. I'm gonna challenge you on this then.
Okay.
Let's say you're doing a little bit of the glutes or whatever exercise you're doing, like thrust or something like that. Do you not feel as though when you're doing that, you're going to be using a little bit of the back part of the leg anyway? And so some parts of the leg, even though you're training it separately, they are going to get worked more than once.
That's going to happen with everything you train.
Okay.
Because there's always a secondary muscle. That's why you've got to be really good with your form. To make sure you're hitting the right part. Even when I'm on the hypertension, hyperextension, and you've got to have your feet turned out to hit the glutes, and you've got to round your back when you're doing that. Doesn't necessarily need any weights, but you just kind of hands on chest and you lift up and down to get the glutes going, ready for your glute session.
Okay.
But I think, even when you're training back, you're training biceps slightly at the same time.
I agree.
So it's just, that is going to happen.
There's
no way of avoiding that, but you can really clean it up by making sure that your posture is right and you're doing all the right things like that.
Okay. And in terms of trying to focus on the burning of the fat, how should they structure their split? Because I think you and I are both in agreement, actually. We're both quite similar in that we don't recommend steady state cardio like jogging or anything like that. Do you ever incorporate things like high intensity interval training?
I don't, but what I do sometimes is I do high reps.
Okay.
So I do the same movements. I will do a slightly lower weight. And instead of doing 10 reps, I will do 20 reps.
Okay.
And that will really, get your heart rate going, and it will really make you sweat. And, if you've got anything that tracks your heart rate, when you're lifting, it will quite often say you're in the cardio zone when you're lifting. So it's not like you have to go out of your way to do that. But I do like throwing in a high rep day. I find it hard sometimes though, especially when sometimes I've got a goal where I want to get a personal best in the gym.
Just the biggest weight you can do.
So I go in the gym and I think, right, I'm going to do high rep day today. And then I think, I feel really strong. So I'm just going to go back to 10 reps and just try and get my personal best.
So there is an element of reacting to the day, reacting to how you feel, as opposed to sticking to a plan. And when you have clients that you've given these sort of plans to, let's say in Thai or fitness or something along those lines, do you tell them that this plan is a guide, and if you feel really good that day, push yourself? If you don't, then go for higher reps?
Obviously, I haven't got to the stage yet where I'm giving out the plan. Or would you, I should say, But if I've had someone train with me before and we've gone there to do a certain thing, I usually make them stick to it.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of like, no, you're going to do it. Get back on there and do it, kind of thing. And some people need that motivation. If they're training with me, they're going to work hard, and there's no way out of it.
And in terms of changing things up, so you said obviously you go for normally a set number of reps, and then you'll switch it up. So instead of cardio, you might go for the same exercise, lifting, but higher reps. Do you use that same technique when someone seems to be plateauing perhaps, and they're not able to keep increasing the weight at the same rate?
I find it a really good technique all round, because obviously it is more cardio, but you are still using a lot of muscle, which actually holds onto your muscle. So what they find with the studies is when you're doing a lot of cardio, yes, you may get smaller, but 50% of that will be fat and 50% will be muscle. So you will have the same body composition, but you will be smaller. But if you're doing that with lifting and you're doing high reps, the opposite happens. You can then lose some of the fat and gain muscle, because you're actually telling your body that you need the muscle, and you've got to hold on to it because you're still doing heavy weights.
And do you find that techniques like supersets, pyramid sets, all those sorts of things, do you incorporate those? Do you think there's something you'll
there's a few different things I incorporate, and I find them really helpful, and going to where people get up and they fall over and things.
So for people who are possibly new to training, and they're interested in this lifestyle. Could you talk us through what they mean? So could you talk us through what a superset is and what a pyramid set is?
So supersetting is supersetting a muscle group that you're training. So you'll do 2 different exercises, and
one after the other.
Yeah, there won't be a break in between that. So you'll go from one to the other. And I quite like to train like that anyway.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of rest in between. You know, a lot of people do like maybe a deload week, and I find the deload weeks boring.
Yeah.
So it makes me not want to do it as much. So I'll go in and I think, okay, I'm going to do a deload week, but then I end up doing what I usually do, which is bad. Can't help it sometimes.
And then in terms of pyramid sets, could you, if you've got any experience with those, could you explain to people what those
drop
are?
Sets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically you start at a heavy weight.
Yeah.
But as you go down and you take the weights off, you're actually, even though you're getting lighter, you'll be able to do less reps as you go down. And by the time you get to the lightest weight, you can barely lift it by the time you get to that, which is interesting.
So you're doing each weight to failure.
Yes.
And then you go down.
Yes.
Are there any other techniques apart from those 2 that you find are an interesting way or thing that you've seen
so I used
kind of switch things up?
Years ago, I haven't done it recently. I used to do German volume.
Okay.
Which is 10 sets of 10.
Yeah.
I found that really good way to gain strength.
Yeah.
Because you've got to really push through that, and it is actually quite brutal.
Yeah.
And that used to be an old Arnold Schwarzenegger way of training.
Is that each set of 10 to failure?
So you've got to do 10 sets of 10.
The same weight or sets?
You do it slightly less,
okay.
but it is still the heaviest you can do at that reps.
Fine.
So it's still a heavy weight.
Yeah.
Funny enough, years ago when I was in Budapest, I was training and Arnold Schwarzenegger walked in.
No way.
And he was watching me train. And he kept
he ran over to you and said, "Be safe."
No, he didn't do that. But he kept looking at me. It was really bizarre because he kept saying, "You're so beautiful." And I was like, am I in a twilight? This is really weird. And he kept saying, good job. Like he wasn't training. He was just watching going, good job. I was like, this is weird. And then I did go over to him after and I said, can we have a picture? But as I walked over, his security guard really shoved me because obviously no one was allowed near him.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, no, let the beautiful lady in, let her come. And he took a picture and we did all that. And then I left. But yes.
Do you still have that picture?
Yeah, I do.
If you could send that to me, I'd love to put it on the screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, this is when I was heavier. So I've got a weird face in it. But yeah, I don't mind. It's on my socials anyway. So.
Okay, cool. And I want to touch on specific programming of individual exercises in terms of sets and reps. Mm-hmm. So could you talk me through your perspective on that? From someone who's never stepped foot in the gym before to someone who's really quite advanced, if there is a difference between the two in terms of sets and reps? So
I think there is a difference because you really have to be careful not to get an injury. You have to be careful with form. Form is really important when you're starting out. And obviously when you go into a gym, you see a lot of bad form.
All the time.
And actually there is a personal trainer that comes in and he kind of shouts really loudly and he's very and he just talks about himself the whole session.
We've all seen, every gym's got one of those.
His women never change and it's really sad. They never change. And sometimes the women come over to me and they say, I've never spoken to these women before. They come over and they're like, this is painful to watch because the women's form is so bad, but he's so busy talking about himself that he doesn't correct them. But yeah, so get yourself a good PT if you've got one that doesn't talk about themselves. I think when you start off, there's a lot of testing to see what weight you can do.
Yeah.
And obviously change doesn't come with comfort. So it does have to be uncomfortable. Training isn't comfortable. You do have to feel like you're working out.
Yeah.
There's some people, they will go to the gym and they will do a really light weight and they will just think that that's good enough. But it's not. You've got to do to your full potential. So if you're training and you find you can do 15 reps quite easily on a machine, well, you need to increase the weight and lower the reps, unless you're doing a high rep week.
Yeah. And we're going to assume in this example that someone is training specifically for muscle mass, to increase their muscle mass. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, what I found good results with is going in, doing about 10 reps, 8 to 10 reps.
Yeah.
And then throwing in those high rep days, I think they really help with strength.
So you have a high rep day, not a high rep individual set. So you have a specific day where every exercise is high reps. Oh,
yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll go in and the whole session is high reps.
Okay.
Every
And
single
that
one.
switches it up.
Yeah.
And then that 8 to 10 rep range, how many sets at the minute now would you normally look to do in the gym?
So if I'm on leg press, I do too much on the leg press, probably 8, but for a normal person, I would say 4, 3 to 4. For women, when they're doing upper body, I usually do stick to about 3.
Okay.
Sets.
Per exercise.
3 sets, 10 reps.
Okay. And do you vary that on their experience? So obviously you said when they're very, very new, you want to look out for form and things like that. Do you limit the number of sets they do when they're new to take that into account? Or do you still get them to do 3 sets and roughly that many reps?
Well, obviously, if you're training someone, you're there with them, you can evaluate at that time. But usually people can do 3 to 4 sets and that's fine. That's kind of a normal set range.
Okay. I think we have a slightly different perspective.
Okay. What's your perspective?
So I generally get people to do around 2 sets.
Okay.
And I think you will get more from 3 sets. You probably get more from 4. But for me, it's a balance between not being in the gym all day and getting enough done, essentially.
So you want to do more movements and less sets?
Yeah. So I try and get people to do something along the lines of, say, 10 to 15 exercises, but it's only 2 sets on each exercise.
Okay.
And I find that 10 to 15 will be for the whole body. It's not necessarily individual.
So you don't do like a split?
No, if it's an advanced lifter, I will go for that. But for the everyday person, I generally say do everything, just to make sure everything's nice and balanced.
So that won't be a daily workout?
No. I mean,
how much rest do you have in between sessions?
So I generally get people to do every other day.
Okay.
So one week it'll be 3 sessions, next week it'll be 4, because I've got odd number of days in the week.
Yeah. So
I never really say go by the week. Just go by a 2-day cycle. Train, rest, train, rest, train, rest. But it's just the way I found personally. In terms of rest periods for yourself, what do you kind of tell people as they first start out versus when they're as experienced as you are?
So when they first start out, they do have rest between, depending on which exercise it is, it might be 2 to 3 minutes rest.
Okay.
Each set. Not too long because you don't want the muscles to get cold. That's important. But just enough. So that they can come back with the strength that they need to carry on. And
then when they're more advanced, do you cut that rest period down?
Well, for myself, I barely have any rest.
Yeah, you say you go
just
quite quickly,
I enjoy
actually.
It.
Okay, fine.
I enjoy it, and I found the results that way. Yeah. And I found that because the body recovers so quickly when you're on the carnivore diet, I never get DOMS or anything like that. So I can get away with doing things like that.
Okay. And then what about warm-up? Do you get your clients to, or would you, obviously you're not training yet, but what's your view on a warm-up? Do you warm up yourself? Would you advise other people? Do you think it's best to avoid?
So we're probably going to disagree on this one as well.
Okay.
I actually don't do a warm-up.
That's exactly my view.
Okay. Because I feel like you waste your strength on the warm-up. Yeah. I'm exactly the same. Even when I was powerlifting, I mean, I'm sure people all want some numbers. My biggest deadlift was 251. I probably weighed around 71-ish kilos, 72 maybe. So it wasn't bad. Good.
But I never really warmed up. My warm-up.
Did you have injuries?
No, never. I would go up in sort of by 40 kilos or 50 kilos each time.
Yes, that's what I do.
Yeah, so I do one rep with just one plate, then another plate, then another plate, and another plate. And I would do each warm-up rep there, like as if it was the biggest final weight.
Yeah.
Just to get into the right swing of things and make sure my joints are feeling good, everything's in the right position. And so my entire warm-up might have been only 4 reps or 5 reps. That's it. And then I'd have a little bit of a gap to my actual working set, and that was it. So I'm guessing for yourself, you just go straight into the first exercise.
If I want a session where I'm going to try and attempt a PB, I will go in and I will put 2 plates aside.
Yeah.
And I will miss out the first of putting 1 plate aside and warming up with that kind of,
You don't want to use up your energy.
You don't want to use up your strength. You see some people that go in and they do cardio first, where I feel like you reduce your strength if you're doing that.
Completely agree with you.
If you're going to do cardio, do it after.
Yeah.
If at all. But I prefer the type of cardio where someone's outside walking in the sun, getting the vitamin D and, it's more
walking or
that
sprinting,
way.
something along those lines.
Yeah. But in terms of a warm-up, it really depends on what I want to gain from that session. If I want to be on the leg press for like 8 different sets, then I may start with 1 plate. But if I'm going for, I want to try and get closer to my personal best, then I will start at a higher weight.
Okay.
And then progress on.
I'm going to predict what everyone's thinking or wanting to know right now. Give me some numbers.
Oh.
Give me some PBs. I think people will be interested.
My PBs. So, do you know what? Where I was training with my dad recently, because as I said, my dad was a bodybuilder, he actually avoids squats.
Okay.
Because like the big chest press and stuff like that, because he said that's where everyone gets injured. You get injured, you can't train. So for a long time, my strength has been going on the leg press. Okay. And then I will move on to other machines where I'm just kind of
isolating,
kind of whacking, kind of just getting it out there. And so I do a lot of different machines on leg press, but there are a lot of very different machines that people would never have heard of before, because the gym that I go to is like a really old school bodybuilding gym, and it's got lots of Nautilus machines. Yeah. There's one that I call that I like to finish on, called, I call it the torture chamber. Okay. Because it's like this huge machine, and you go from leg press to leg extension.
Oh, in the same machine?
Yeah.
Oh,
but you do the leg press light-ish. Okay. Because you're just kind of getting your legs warm. Okay. By the time you get to the leg extension, your legs are pretty dead. Okay. And it's really hard to get through that session, through that set.
And I'm interested in compound lifts now, because you mentioned your dad never really did any. And I don't think as a bodybuilder it's essential, it's required, because I think in bodybuilding, isometric exercises where you're focusing on a single muscle group, as long as you do that in turn, I think it's fine for the purpose that you are training. For yourself at the minute, do you do compound exercises?
So I haven't been doing them recently, but it is actually something that I'm going to change. Okay. Because I kind of miss climbing up the ladder of those, because it can be quite rewarding when you start all these, especially because I haven't done them for such a long time. So I will start light, and then as the weeks go on, it's going to obviously progress. It's funny because I was just talking to someone about that the other day, saying that I really want to get back to doing all of those, and gaining strength in those ones again, because I do enjoy them.
Okay. And what about recovery? Do you, I'm talking about recovery in terms of specifically, like as soon as you get home, versus in the days following, if you have gap of a couple of days perhaps. Do you do anything specific for that? Do you know that when you get home you've got to do this or not do that in any kind of aspect?
I don't find I need to get home and eat unless I'm hungry. Okay. I don't get any DOMs, as I said before, after. Yes, there's not anything really. I just find that the body just does what it's meant to do. It just recovers. It's completely almost like, so the next day I can feel that I've trained. And I know I've trained hard. Yeah. But there's no like pain and really bad discomfort. Whereas the person that I'm training with usually is practically crying, going down the stairs, sending me videos of them crawling down the stairs and things. And there's me, I can just run, I can do whatever I want.
And do you find that, well, I personally do find it, but I'm interested in your opinion, when people go to Carnivore, that seems to be a really common theme. Yeah. Their recovery, it's not as long, it's not as painful or with as much soreness. Yeah. Do you?
So I find that if I wanted to, I could train legs every day and there would be no problem. Yeah. Because they just don't hurt. Yeah. And, sometimes when I was missing that feeling of the pain, I train with my dad and my brother, who are both bodybuilders, and then they would say, right, we're done, and go home, and I'd be like, I'm staying here for a little bit longer, because I wanted to try and break through and get this pain, and they're in lots of pain the next day, and then I'm not in any pain still. And, I've been in the gym for like an hour longer or whatever, and it just doesn't happen.
And I'm being really specific now. In terms of the actual contraction, let's say you're doing, like a bicep curl. During the actual curl, like when you're at the top of that rep, I don't know about you, but I find that now that I'm Carnivore, I don't feel a sort of burn, for want of a better word. Yeah. I feel some fatigue, like I can't lift, but it's not a burn sense. Do you find that?
Yeah, that's very accurate. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do the people that you coach in terms of diet, when they're training, do they say similar things to you?
I don't think they've got down to that detail, but they
Okay.
do say that they don't hurt the next day and things like that. And that they can, normally they gain in strength and things like that. But they haven't mentioned that before. But now that you have, it is true. That is how it feels. You can get to a point where you get fatigued, but it's not like that burning, whereas it was before. Yeah,
I think Richard noticed the same thing as well, because he competed to a very high level in bodybuilding and things, and he noticed the same thing.
Yeah.
In terms of the intra-workout, talk to me about nutrition. Is it just water? Do you keep a little bit of salt with you during the workout? Do you have nothing at all?
So what I do is I do like a teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
About 20 minutes before I train.
Yeah.
And I put that in, I started putting it in warm water because it dissolves.
Okay.
So it doesn't get stuck at the bottom of the little cup. And I just use that like a shot.
And then during the workout itself, you have nothing then?
No. And actually, when I haven't had that before, I've been and I was training legs and I started getting cramps in my feet.
Okay.
And I was thinking, oh no, I forgot to do my salt.
Yeah.
So I went to the counter and I said, have you got any salt? And they said no. And then they came over and they said, oh, we found a sachet. As soon as the salt touched my lips, the cramp went, which I felt was absolutely amazing. Oh, yeah, still mind blown about that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just have to make sure I have the salt shot before I go, and then I'm fine.
And what, in terms of getting those cramps then, do you find that when people that you're coaching into this diet are transitioning, that's an issue that comes up now and again?
They can get cramps, and it can be lack of fat and it can be lack of salt.
Yeah.
Usually.
Okay.
So they either need to up their nutrition and have more fats in there, because some people are still scared of fats.
Yeah.
When I first started out, you've got all these doctors telling you, fat's this and you're gonna have a heart attack and everything, and then you kind of hyper focus on everything, all the way you're feeling and stuff. So it can be worrying, but that's where you've got to trust the process with it.
Yeah. What about patients who are obese and they're looking to get into the gym as well? Obviously, taking into your experience of getting people into the diet, and obviously what you're learning now as part of the personal training course, what kind of differences would an obese person need to make to the actual physical process of training once they're in the gym, do you think?
I actually find that they're stronger.
Okay. More leverage, maybe.
Just find that they have a lot of strength.
Okay.
Obviously, when you see, apart from yourself, like the men doing strongman competitions, they are bigger. They've got a lot of body fat. And that's what helps them do their lifts. But yes, I do find they're stronger, but I find they're not confident on the machines and they're not confident in the gym. They're worried about people looking at them. I think mentally is quite difficult for people when they're bigger. They're really shy about being in the gym. Yeah. But actually, when you go to a gym, what you find is that people really respect you for being there and for trying to change your life, and they're not going to judge you like that. Yeah. They're not going to be like, oh, she's overweight, or she's really fat over there, or they're not going to be like that. They're going to be like, oh, look at them, good on them, and they're going to give them some praise. And I find if you're in a good gym, other people in the gym will come over and help and give you encouragement.
I think if people were going to judge you for being morbidly obese, they will judge you if you're sat on a couch eating donuts all day.
Yes.
Not being in the place. Yeah. That means you're actively aware of the issue and doing exactly what you need to improve your life.
Yeah. Like I said, when I started going to the gym and I was overweight, I was going at 4 a.m. and I was absolutely mortified one morning that someone walked in that I went to school with.
No way.
I was like, no. Like, I was going to the gym at that time to avoid everyone.
Yeah.
And I just remember going bright red and being so embarrassed.
Yeah. Did they recognize you?
Yeah. And they came over and they spoke to me.
Well, you can't have been that much bigger then, surely.
Oh, it was absolutely mortifying. I was much bigger.
Yeah. And in terms of that feeling of being judged and being watched, forgive me if I'm completely wrong on this, but I suspect it's not just obese people. I think some women tend to go through that as well. Maybe for good reasons, maybe for bad reasons. Women possibly feel like they're being perved on as well in the gym. Do you find that that's something you've had to put up with as well? I
just don't focus on those things.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of women out there giving women a bad name really in the gyms, setting up cameras and trying to say, oh, this man's looking at me. And they might not even be looking. They're just doing their set. These poor innocent men
getting berated.
Accused of, because I set up a camera one day.
Yeah.
Because I usually like to check back over the camera and look at my form and see how I'm doing and see what needs improving if I'm not training with someone.
Yeah.
And this guy came over to talk to me, and then he went, "Oh, notice the camera.
Yeah.
You're not going to put me on social media, are you, for coming to talk to you?" I was like, "Listen, I'm not like that at all." So the funny thing is, because I grew up around gyms, I feel comfortable in gyms.
Yeah.
So obviously when I bumped into that guy, I was mortified because I was going at that time because I wasn't comfortable. But when the weight started coming off, I joined the gym that I'm in now, which is a proper gym. And I never worry about people looking at me.
Okay.
I do get a lot of men looking at me, and I just don't care. It's just what's going to happen. It just doesn't bother me.
So I think in your case, it's not an issue because you've developed a mindset that means it's not even a blip on your radar.
It's not. And I just find that for me, gyms are kind of like my happy place, and I just go there and I do what I've got to do.
Yeah.
I don't focus on other people. When I used to train with my dad, funny enough, he'd be like, "Oh, that man's really staring at you. Oh, that man's staring." And I'm like, "Is it? Like, is he?" Looking around. But it's not something I focus on. It's not something I care about.
Yeah.
You know, people are going to look at other people, and it might be that they're checking out if you've got the correct form.
Yeah.
Might be that they're looking, thinking, that looks like a good exercise. I might implement that on my day. You know, you don't know why someone's looking at you. Sure. It might not be in a perverted way. Sure. It could be so many different things. And there's a lot of women that think straight away, he's perving on me.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is
it's quite sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And the reason I ask is exactly because we've seen those videos.
I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, I think women need to stop doing that. I really do. I think it's really unfair.
Yeah.
Because men are going there to train. They might have had a really hard day at work.
Yeah, exactly.
This is their outlet. And then they're getting some silly person filming them.
Yeah.
When they might just be innocently training.
Yeah.
So I don't focus on that at all.
I think you've got the right mindset in terms of being so focused on yourself, you don't really care. But I'm putting myself in the shoes of people who don't quite have that mindset yet, people who are very new, people who are very shy perhaps, people who are obese and you know don't like the way they look for whatever reason, or maybe people who are underweight and don't like the way they look. What kind of advice do you give people who are in that kind of situation but don't have your kind of strength of mind yet?
I kind of think in the beginning you've got to push yourself through it.
Okay.
Because you want the change. How much do you want the change?
Yeah.
How important is it to you?
So you're putting the onus on them.
Yeah. And then once they get into the swing of things, people usually do get the gym bug.
Okay.
Because it does, release all the happy hormones and stuff, and it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And when they start seeing results, they're feeling amazing about themselves. So they don't even care about that kind of stuff. And then they're in a routine and then they're going. But in the beginning, it can be really daunting. Yeah. I would say get yourself a good personal trainer or someone to train with so they can spot you. But obviously there's a lot of bad spotters out there and people that allow things to happen that shouldn't. It may be investing if you're really a new beginner and you don't know what you're doing, investing into a personal trainer right off, from the beginning. Yeah. You have someone there to encourage you.
Yeah. So
you won't feel as daunted. It won't be as daunting. And someone can tell you if you're doing it right or wrong. You can feel more confident about yourself. The gym that I go to, it's so dense in machines that you can't look from one end of the room to the other. There's just so many machines. So quite often it does feel like it's more private than it is.
Okay.
There could be a lot of people in there, but not everyone can look at you because you're tucked away in a corner on a machine. So I'm a big advocate of the gym that I go to. It's very good.
I can tell. So I'm going to flip the question around a little bit now.
Okay.
So that was about how people can focus in on themselves and just really have that strength to not care about when other people are coming into them. What about the other way around now? Because what if someone wants to come and talk to you in the gym? As a woman, if a man wanted to come over and talk to you, be it about your exercise, be it about your form, be it to try and chat you up, whatever. What is in your perspective, from a woman's perspective, what's the most annoying way they can come and do that? And what's the best way they can come and do that?
Way? Wait, what was there is something there.
I guess it's when they just come over and think they know better than you and everything straight away.
Yeah, I have had, when I was going at 4 a.m, I was out of shape. So I looked like I didn't know what I was doing. I had some men come over and they were giving me their advice. And I was thinking, I've been training since I was a kid. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. And he's telling me these things. And I just kind of said, look, I get all my advice from my dad, but thanks.
Yeah.
And that's it really. But I mean, some people can be they can come from a good place.
Yeah.
So if you have someone approaching you and they've got some advice to give you, maybe sometimes listen.
Yeah.
It could help. It could help your session. It could improve what you're doing. Don't always take it personally.
Yeah.
It could just be helping.
Okay.
So there's been a few times where I've seen bigger ladies that are new to the gym and they're kind of struggling working out how the machine works. So I'll just go over to them and say, look, this is what you do. Sit here, sit there. They really appreciate it. And I say, look, you're doing a good job.
Okay.
Just to, and tell them what to do. And they're really, really thankful for that.
Okay. So I'm going to pose to you
the
conundrum. In many a head in the gym. Mm-hmm. So I saw a story, I can't remember the guy's name now, some YouTuber, I think his name was Will Tennyson.
Okay.
He recently got married to someone he met in the gym.
Okay.
And that got me thinking, what if the first time he spoke to her in the gym, it didn't go well and it just became really awkward? Mm. So if someone wanted to come and have a chat with you in that way in the gym, like what would your advice be? Like if someone wanted to come and do that,
Would I advise someone to go and chat to someone in the gym?
Would you even do that in the first place?
Probably not. I'd probably say wait till they finish their session, if anything. I've had some weird things. Like there was one time that I went to the gym and this guy was watching me the whole time.
Yeah.
And it was really obvious he was watching me. And we was in late and I was the last person out of the gym. And he was in his car waiting and he actually followed me home in his car. Yeah.
Bloody, I thought you were going to say he came over and said hi at the end of the session.
No, he followed me. But luckily where I live, it's quite a busy area.
Yeah.
So every turn I was turning, he first of all, he drove out of the car park into the next car park and waited for me to pass. And then he went behind me and he followed me every turn. And then, so when I got home, I put the car back on again, turned around and drove somewhere else. So I think I don't really want him to know where I'm living. So I waited somewhere else for 10 minutes, drove back, got out of my car, looked around and he was driving past. I was like, oh. So he did see where I got out in the end. I told the gym, told some other people around me. So don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Definitely don't do that. That is not cool and it's not attractive.
I wasn't expecting an answer like that.
So Jesus. I feel like if I wasn't in a busy area, would that have been different?
Yeah. Especially if you lived in an area where it's quite rural.
I wouldn't go down quietly, by the way. I wouldn't.
So you mentioned when people first start, in order to get a bit of a helping hand, shall we say, and gain the right mindset in making sure form is good, you recommend people work with a PT.
Yeah.
As someone who is doing that now, in terms of the knowledge for it and the training for it, if someone is quite new, they know nothing about the gym. They've been obese their whole life, or they've been too scared to go into the gym for whatever reason. How are they going to know what to look for in a PT to choose one that's appropriate for them?
I think you can find someone, the best thing is to find someone you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So that's really important, because if you're not comfortable with someone, you're not going to enjoy your session and you're going to be self-conscious and worrying about things. So someone that really puts you at ease.
Yeah. So meet them in person.
Yeah.
First. Okay.
I think so. Someone who is focused on you.
Yeah.
And the training session and not themselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, usually when you go to a gym, there's quite a few personal trainers.
Yeah.
And they just kind of be around.
Yeah.
And those people would normally make themselves known in some way. You can speak to the staff to say what PTs are working. You can look people up online that are local. Mm. You can watch their socials and you see how they work. See if you think that you would work well with them.
Yeah.
See how they push people. Are they making them really engaged, or are they just kind of letting them get through the session?
Yeah.
And they're not going to change. There's quite a bit to it.
Yeah.
I would say the majority of people that are in that line of work are there to help. So they've got that kind of personality.
Yeah.
But there's obviously different things that they excel in.
Yeah.
So there would be some...
Like specialist goals kind of thing?
There would be some that just work with pregnant women.
Okay.
There'd be some that work with strength goals.
Yeah.
Fat loss, all different areas of expertise. So finding... I suppose it could be quite daunting when you first start out, but actually having the confidence to speak to staff and find out actually... because they will have a good judgment on their PTs and know, this person specializes in fat loss or, you know, whatever else. So they'd be able to advise you that way.
Do you think female clients, shall we say, are better off with a female PT?
Some.
And
I do think so.
Why do you think that is?
Because some women are just so self-conscious.
Okay.
And they don't want a man to be training them. But I don't think that's all the times. I think some women work really well with men, and men are really good at pushing them on and giving them what they need to really push through. So I'm not saying that male PTs aren't for women, because there are some great ones out there that work with a lot of women, but some women will only want other women, depending on their self-confidence.
Yeah. Do you think that's because of the way they see themselves?
Yes.
And the judgment?
I think that's changeable.
Yeah.
As they progress and as they gain confidence, they might want to go with a guy they've seen training in there, and they actually think that he trains really well.
Yeah.
So it can be changeable over the time. So don't feel like you've chosen your PT and you're stuck with that PT forever.
Okay.
You are able to move around if you need to. But if you find a good one, obviously, then you stick with them.
I think people find it awkward to switch to a different PT in the same gym.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they've let someone down, right? Yeah, I get that. I'm intrigued in terms of the qualification you're doing now. Is there, obviously the qualification is to become better at being a PT, officially licensed, whatever the technical term is. Is there any part of that qualification, I'm just intrigued now, about nutrition?
Yes, and it's really frustrating.
I thought it would be. Can you tell us what can you tell us about it?
They base it around the Eat Well plate.
Okay.
And they say that you've got to have a certain percentage of your diet bread and things like that. So that's quite a frustrating whole section.
And have you told them your personal diet?
Yeah, they know it, because the guy that I work with who's doing the course, he kind of follows my journey and stuff.
I see. So and what do they have to say about it?
Well, I think in the beginning he was a bit like doubtful.
Okay.
But, over the time I think he's probably can see that I'm doing well on it. And I mean, not a lot of people can say anything to me because my health changed so drastically.
Yeah.
And, I'm looking younger now than before. I'm fitter now and I'm clearly healthier. So not a lot of people can just disprove that. Yeah. It's funny because it's slightly off subject, but
please.
I get a lot of attacks from vegans.
Okay.
And online, of course. One face-to-face, actually.
Oh,
and I'll come back to that.
Yeah, tell us.
One vegan wrote to me online and said, when you're 40, you're going to have a heart attack. And this was 2 months before I was 40, because I'm now 41.
Okay.
And when they wrote this really angry message, I was like, oh, so I've got 2 months till I die. Okay. I'm feeling amazing. I feel the best I ever have, but I'm going to die in 2 months. It really goes very well. And then...
and what did they say?
They don't say anything. They don't come back to me. Speechless.
Yeah.
Because they're normally like, oh, they thought I was a lot younger than I am, or things like that.
Which is a slap in the face, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So that is the one that I met face to face. There was another one online, and she was a nurse, and she said, I can't wait until you get heart disease.
Yeah.
And when you come to my hospital, I'm not going to treat you. So she's going completely against her do no harm, kind of the oath that she signs.
An actual doctor said that?
She was a nurse.
No, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Which was pretty mind-blowing. But the person that I came into contact with face-to-face, it was really quite awkward because as soon as I sat down, within 2 seconds, she told me she's vegan, as they do.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay, I do the opposite. And she was like, what do you mean? I said, well, I only eat meat and I don't eat any fruits or vegetables.
Yeah.
And her jaw kind of hit the table.
Yeah.
And she was saying, well, how long do you think I've been doing the vegan diet? How old do you think I am? And I said, I don't know. She was like, come on, guess. How old do you think I am? And I said, I think you're about 70 something. And she actually called me a female dog.
No way.
Word for a female dog, yeah. And then she kept going on and on at me. And she was like, right, I'm going to guess your age. And you could see her adding on years, looking at me and adding on years. And she's like, I think you're 31. And I said, I'm nearly 40. She was like, well, you look good then. And she stormed off really fast.
I hope that's on video somewhere.
I wish it was. It was hilarious. It was so funny because you really could see her mind working and trying to add on the years.
Yeah.
And she really thought she did a good job. And she was so shocked. She was like, and she went, you look good. And just walked off really fast.
To be fair, at least she had the courage to say you look good and admit that.
She really didn't want to.
Yeah.
She didn't want to.
Obviously, with all the people that you've coached into this, can you just share with us like some of the most significant and really nice success stories, some of the things where people have gone from a really low point to a really high point?
So the one that I mentioned earlier that went from bedbound to then being able to exercise and then looking for work.
What kind of time frame was that one?
I was coaching her for about 6 months.
Wow, that's quite quick actually.
Yeah.
From bedbound to that.
Yeah. There was a long-term coaching client, and he was a single father.
Okay.
He was severely depressed.
Yeah.
That was his main thing.
Yeah.
Overweight. He had different health issues. And we would meet each other every week because he needed that.
Yeah.
And what was really nice is he was then becoming more patient with his son.
Yeah.
He was able to start a new job in the end because he had no confidence. He had really bad mental health. So he was struggling financially. And by the end of the coaching sessions, he'd completely changed his life around, got the job of his dreams.
Wow.
And was, this really good role model for his son. He was working out daily. He had like a gym in his garage, I think it was. So he was doing all these things. Like the things that he wanted to do is he wanted to be calmer. As a parent, he wanted to be able to get through the stresses of life.
Yeah.
Sleep was an issue for him as well. And obviously body composition, he lost a lot of weight. And the other main thing was he wanted to progress in his job.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, he's got his dream job. He's like calling the shots in this job and really well paid, really doing a really good job. So I was really proud of that.
Yeah. And in terms of cases like that, where I think they can be harder at times because there's a mental aspect as well as a dietary aspect. What would you say are like the most common obstacles that you face outside of diet?
Yourself, themselves. I think they put, what people can do is overthink. Yeah. And they think, it's too restrictive, I can never do it. Yeah. And like, if you're in that mind frame and you're thinking, I can never have crisps again. Like I said, they're going to run to the crisp, the cupboard, and they're going to eat everything. Yeah. And they're going to feel like they're lacking in something. But if you what I say to my clients is, we're going to take it a week at a time. Okay. So at the end of each week, we're going to assess where you are. We're going to really look at it, have a proper look at it, pros and cons, how you're feeling, where you're at, how you're feeling mentally. So instead of saying, I'm never going to eat chocolate, insert their favorite food. I'm never going to eat that again. Say, I'm not going to eat that food for a week. Anyone can do anything for a week. Yeah. A week is such a short time. It goes really fast. So as long as they're covering the base, eating enough, getting used to just having meat on their plate. I can't stress enough how eating enough is the main thing, and making sure they're getting enough electrolytes and stuff. They can get through that first week really quite easily. Yeah. And they're surprised. Yeah. And then we meet up and we say, okay, so how are you feeling? How, we talk about their sleep. We talk about the stress. We talk about all the different things in life that could, that is benefiting, and maybe things that may be going wrong. And I can normally pinpoint something, and it might be that they've started drinking lots of tea or something. Yeah. So I say, you need to drop that down. We need to tweak that out, obviously, because we speak a lot about coffee in this movement, but tea is really high in oxalates, and it can be far worse. If someone's coming from a high oxalate diet, though, that keeping one cup of tea in can be helpful so that they don't get the extreme oxalate dumping. Yeah. But so taking it a week at a time and really encouraging them, anyone can do anything for 1 week. Yeah. Don't see it forever, see it for 1 week. And you keep doing that for a few weeks, and then they've got into a routine, and then they find that is actually their base, and they're used to it, and they don't think about the other way. Sure. So it can be easier that way. Yeah. And I know a lot of people are going to ask specifically about you now. So can you talk to us specifically in terms of what a typical day looks like in terms of what you eat? Yeah. And how you plan your physical gym workouts around your individual meals and timing and things like that? So I usually get up in the morning and eat pretty much straight away after I get up. Yeah. Unless I'm busy, because I have that flexibility. In the morning, I'll more often than not have like maybe 10 eggs. Yeah. 10 to 12 eggs. And depending on if I'm feeling like I need a bit of fat, I'll put some butter on the eggs. or I won't, depending on how I feel like, you know, what I need. And then I'll often go to the gym.
Okay. In the morning still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of like mid-morning to the gym.
Yeah.
That's my favourite time to go. And then when I get back, it's time for my next meal. It's not that I think that I need to eat after training, because I quite often, you know, I haven't, if I'm training late and I've eaten already, I don't need to eat again. So then I eat my lunch, which can be something like a kilo of chicken wings.
Okay.
And then for dinner time, I might have 1 or 2 steaks, depending on how hungry I feel.
Okay. And you generally always keep to morning in terms of training?
Yes, I try to. There's sometimes I do go in the evening, but I prefer going in the morning. 1, it's not as busy.
Yeah.
2, it's cooler in the day. And 3, it just works with my hormones much better.
Okay. So it's not because you find you get a better training session per se, it's things outside of training.
There is that as well. I do think that I can lift more in the morning than in the evening. I think there is, because there was a time where I was training with my dad and he could only train in the evening. So we was training every evening, but then that can keep you wired for a while. So it can disturb your sleep.
Okay.
And things like that. But needs must, you know, if I'm training by myself, I just go in the daytime.
Okay. And when you said you had kids in the past, during your pregnancy, were you training as well?
Well, I actually every time I've been pregnant, I had an issue called SPD, symphysis pubis dysfunction. And basically the ligaments soften too much. And the pubic ligament softens too much, and it's really excruciating pain. So I wonder if I went through pregnancy again, whether that would happen or not. Yeah. Which would be really interesting. I'm not going to test it out. But it'd be nice to know. Yeah. So sometimes when I was going through pregnancy, my last pregnancy, I tried to train, but the SPD got too bad. Okay. And I had to stop, and I was sometimes on crutches with it, and it's really hard to get up out of bed and stuff, you know, so it can be really quite bad. Every pregnancy you have, once you have that, it gets worse every time. Oh, really? Apparently, but that is under the standard diet. So I do wonder. Yeah.
What would it be under a different diet? Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And do you have people that come to you who become pregnant during your coaching time, or are pregnant already when they come to you? I haven't actually
had anyone that's pregnant, no.
Okay.
No,
fine.
So I haven't had to, it's not something I've had to deal with yet.
Okay. Another thing I'm interested in is this space that we're in is predominantly male dominated. Do you feel as though that is something that affects you in some way? Do you feel as though people are mansplaining things to you? Do you feel as though sometimes you're not looked at with the same credibility as someone else at all?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. I actually do think there's quite a lot of female carnivores. Yeah. Maybe they're quiet about it. Yeah. You know, so I've had clients in the past that don't tell anyone they're carnivore, but they've been carnivore for quite a while. Yeah. They make excuses when they go out and they say they've got food allergies or something like that. Yeah. And or they won't say anything at all. They get their meal and they just eat the meat and they leave the rest. Okay. And no one will say anything.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they don't want to say?
So some women are just not confident. Yeah. And they don't want to stand out and they don't want to be different. I'm quite different to that. I've always been a bit of a rebel, and I don't really mind too much what people think of me. Okay. Especially if I think that I'm onto something. I'm not going to be quiet about it. I would rather tell people so that they can benefit from it as well. Yeah. So I have my social media and stuff.
So if someone is in that position where they don't really want to tell anyone, what would you say to them?
So obviously it's a personal decision, but I do help them come up with excuses. Like I said, when you go out for meals with your friends, just say you've got an allergy, or just order more meat, and then just eat those bits. And generally, if you leave all the other stuff, people aren't going to say anything. Yeah. But if you sit there and you start saying, like I do, can I have that burger, but take off the bun, take off the chips, take off this?
Yeah, just the meat.
It's very obvious. But I quite often say that, and then they bring it with garnish or whatever else on it. Okay.
And what about your personal goals? Obviously, you're doing your PT course now. Mm-hmm. How do you see yourself evolving in this space in the future?
Just like to help people. Yeah. I do like to see people transform their health. My focus has kind of shifted quite a bit. Okay. I don't know if you know, I brought out a product range.
Yes, yeah. You should have brought some with you and
well, I've got some, but I've got some, but it's actually my a new product that I've got coming out, so it's a bit of a secret at the moment. I've added something to it. So my products are tallow based.
Okay. What's the name of the brand?
Tallow Glow.
Tallow Glow. Okay.
Yeah. And they've gone worldwide. You know, they're very much loved by people all over the world, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Even the fragrance free is like, you know, it's not like a heavy scent or anything. I've had the feedback from people where they say they've gone for other brands, bigger brands, and it smells really bad and mine doesn't. So,
okay.
Yeah. So basically mine is one of the few on the market, which is 100% tallow if you get the fragrance free.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I purify and go through many steps. And then I whip that up and it comes to a nice consistency. But recently, I've added something else to it. It's still completely animal-based.
Okay.
But it's actually really quite fantastic. And I've only made 3 pots of this.
Okay.
I've got one for myself, one for my mum, and one for my cousin.
Okay.
And the feedback is amazing. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. But I have to then go to the next stage where I'm designing the stickers and things. And,
sure.
And get that done.
What kind of time frame do you think we'll be able to see that?
I want to get it out there as soon as possible. I've just had a delivery today of some new jars. So I can get onto that as soon as possible.
Okay.
And it's actually such a fantastic product.
Yeah.
I've always loved and been obsessed with my Tallow Glow.
Yeah.
But this is even better. And I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah.
So it just goes on slightly thinner because it has something else in there.
Okay.
But it's still completely animal based.
So when you take tallow, obviously fresh, it's you can't put that on yourself.
Yes, a lump.
How do you purify it?
So I use the wet method, which some people use the dry method, which I think can give it a strong smell because it kind of burns it.
What does that mean? Because I have no idea what wet method and dry method is here.
So you either cook it just dry, and then it will melt down and render. Or you cook it in water. So you cook it in a big pot of water, and then that will melt down in the water. But the water cooks it gently, so it doesn't burn it and it doesn't give it a bad smell.
Yeah.
But you've got to go through that process quite a few times. So you put kind of salt in the water. And then you end up, when you pour it out and it dries, you get what they call a tallow cake. You take the tallow cake out and the salt has brought out the impurities that are on the bottom. You scrape them off and you go through the process again and again until you've got a pure white and pretty much scentless product.
Wow, okay. And then if you've got someone who is new to fitness but is already a carnivore and they think, I'm healthy enough, why do I need to get into fitness as well? What would you say to them?
There's no bad side effects to getting into fitness. I would say people do need to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So it may be that lifting isn't for them. It may be that they want to go CrossFit, which is a form of lifting, but it's completely different.
Yeah.
They might want to start jogging, running, outside.
Yeah.
And there are few people that don't want to do anything at all. But what I find is the further into the carnivore diet they go, the more energy they get, the more they need to do something. The more they think, actually, I need to do something with this energy. And, they gain confidence as well, enough to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not something you have to do, but it is something that will benefit you and something that you should look at doing.
Okay. When you first started, you told me that you were really helped by Sean Baker and his YouTube channel.
Yes.
Since then, obviously, it's become a much bigger movement. I think Sean's presence has gotten a lot bigger. He's done a lot more things. There are other people in the space now as well. I mentioned a few here today. Would you recommend any particular resources for someone who isn't carnivore, who isn't into fitness, but is interested in the carnivore lifestyle? Any particular influencers, books, tools, anything like that do you think is a good place to start for people?
So a friend of mine, Carnivore JT, I don't know if you're aware of him.
I've recognized the name.
He does a lot of reaction videos, but what he does differently is he adds on the data and the science. Which is good. So people can see that what he's saying he's backing up.
Yeah.
So he's a good one to follow. Bart K, which is...
I love Bart K.
Scientist Bart K.
Yeah.
Years ago, I would have said Paul Saladino, but not now.
maybe the videos from that era of Paul Saladino.
Yeah. I mean, I have a really interesting story with Paul Saladino.
Tell us. If you're happy to tell us, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, should I? Going back, when was this? 2022, I believe.
Yeah.
I was at a conference with Sean Baker and everyone, and I got a message from this lady who said, my client would like to take you on would you be interested in dating my client?
So, hold on. Wait a minute. So, we've spoken today about how a guy can come over and talk to you in the gym. Mm-hmm. This is not even that. This is, how can I send someone else to flirt with you on my behalf?
Yeah. So basically, she was a matchmaker.
Okay.
And she said, my client has said that he would be interested in dating you.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in moving to Costa Rica? And then she sent me all these pictures of her client. And I was like, this has got to be a fix. So I went back. You can go on the archive of your stories.
Yeah.
And I went back as far as I could. And he had looked at all of my stories.
Oh, my God.
I did say no, but it's just an interesting story. Just interesting. Because I was thinking, I don't know. I think a man has to...
Yeah, to be there.
Take charge. He has to
be confident.
Ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't like the whole matchmaker thing, and I get it. He's busy and whatever else. And
yeah.
So I didn't move to Costa Rica, as you can see. And I did have, there's been a couple of things like that in the movement where another person who was filming a documentary was saying, I'm going to come and take you out for dinner and this, and I'm going to fly over. And it was like literally the same week. It's really weird. But yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, normally after we record this, whoever sat on the other side of me, of the table, I always take them for dinner to say thank you. I'm not sure if I should do that now.
Dangerous territory.
There's a Brazilian place I took Richard and Steve and all these guys too.
No, you have to take me.
Okay, cool.
I'm not going to make up stories. I'm not someone that makes up stories. So that happened in 2022 and I didn't speak about it. But now I'm like, it really doesn't matter, does it?
Yeah.
It's just something that's a funny story.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
So you mentioned your social media as well. So if someone's interested in speaking to you about their diet, getting into things, maybe when you finish your PT course, I'd like you to be their PT, or even just follow your journey and all the things you're doing. What's the best way for them to keep in touch with you and see you?
So the best way is on Instagram.
Okay.
Carnivore.fitness.
Okay.
But I am across all socials, carnivore.fitness. But if you're going to try and get hold of me, message me and things like that, the best ways to do it is there.
Okay.
Instagram again for tallow.glow. Mm-hmm. That's going to change soon.
Okay.
Because I have someone that's making a website.
Oh, perfect.
Because at the moment, I have to take all orders myself and I have to message everyone. It's really time consuming.
So it's a proper cottage industry.
Yeah, it's really quite, it takes a lot of time.
Okay.
So I'm going to get the website up and running soon. But the person that's doing it is on honeymoon at the moment, so I'm waiting for him to get back and get sorted.
Was that from a matchmaker as well? Or?
Could be.
Right, Rachel, thank you very much for coming down. That's been absolutely brilliant. I think we talked about quite a lot of different things, and I'm sure someone will probably get in touch to have a look with you as well.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you.